Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are live. It is Tuesday, May 5th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We have so much to talk about. So many things that have happened over the past 24 hours. So many earnings. Yesterday night, so many earnings in the pre-market. So many earnings after the bell. We got AMD. I know that's going to be a big one. We will not have Technical Tuesday today. We'll probably have that on Friday because we got AMD later after the bell. So we'll be going through all of that. But we got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Pre-markets are green. We are seeing a decent chunk of green. There are obviously some pockets of red, but you've got different elements of the pre-market that are breaking out. S&P 500 trying to go for all-time highs again. I mean, we hit 724. We're at 721. We're up 0.445%. You got Robinhood breaking out up 3%. Bitcoin finally breaking out above 80,000, 81,000. That's very good for your crypto derivative plays. Your memory names are not stopping. Micron up 5%. SanDisk up another 2%. So the memory names inside of this AI semiconductor ecosystem continue to be up. And overall, we're relatively green, which is good to see. Haven't had any crazy news since last night about the Iran war, although oil is spiking up. We'll talk more about that as we get into it. But I think the first thing we got to start off with is earnings. First thing we got to start off with is earnings. Vlad's on CNBC. We will take a look at what he had to say later. He was just on CNBC, so why is he on CNBC again? Let's get into some. I'm curious, what is he talking about? We'll save the clip. Prediction markets. Okay, I'll save the clip right here. We'll talk about it, or we'll watch him in a couple minutes. The CFTC did say something new about prediction markets yesterday, so that's why he's probably talking about it. But we got a bunch of earnings. So let's get into it. Palantir and Grab. Let's start off with Palantir, and then we'll get into Grab. Let's take about 10, 15 minutes to get through these two companies. I know they're very, very important companies for everyone to talk about. Then we will get into all the other companies that had earnings yesterday. Pinterest, Duolingo, companies that have earnings this morning. Shopify, PayPal, some of them good, some of them bad. But let's start off with Palantir and Grab, and we will get into it. Palantir. Okay, so, I mean, they crushed it. Like, there's not much more to say, honestly. I think that's enough. I don't really need. You can take the microphone away from me, to be honest. I don't even need the microphone anymore because there's nothing else to say. Because what else is there to say other than they crushed it? This is a meme from the earnings call last night because the mic didn't work. 3 separate mics didn't work. It was actually hilarious seeing it happen. It's like massive tech company growing revenues 85%, and then the mic's not right. At one point, I think Karp was like, "What the fuck is going?" It's just like, what is happening here? But it happens, Things happen when you're doing stuff live. If anyone would know if things happen when you're doing stuff live, I would be one to know. Having said that, Palantir crushed earnings, and they crushed earnings in a way that, quite frankly, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here, this was one of the best earnings I've seen in the history of earnings that I've at least covered in the stock market. Revenue grew 104% to $1.28 billion in the U.S. Overall top-line revenue grew 85%. The market thought it was going to be 74%. They came in at 85% year-over-year growth. It is not easy to beat those types of expectations, and they did it. U.S. revenue up 104%, GAAP net income margin of 53%. Every dollar, they are bringing 53 cents to the bottom line for shareholders. Rule of 40 of 145, the only other 3 companies on the planet that have a similar rule of 40, NVIDIA, Micron, SK Hynix. And they're increasing their fiscal year 2026 guide from 61% to 71%. I quite frankly don't even care about the stock. Obviously, we'll talk about the stock. The stock has done very well over the past couple of years. It has, made a lot of people a lot of money. I understand that the stock is not running right now. I'll actually be curious to see what happens when the market opens, if this stock ends up getting any love, trying to go a little bit green right here in the pre-market. But this stock should be up minimum 10, 15% in my opinion, based on those earnings. And the reason I think it should be up, even if it's not, and again, you can't control what happens to the stock, the macro, the market's interpretation of software, whatever it is. But the reason I think the stock should be up, quite frankly, is because if the narrative is that software is dead, which every software company that has reported already said their numbers, and the market basically was like, yeah, we don't believe that this is meaningful growth. We don't think this is the right type of growth in the age of AI. Palantir disproved that narrative at every single metric. Now, I get the arguments that it's expensive. Look at the valuation, look at the PE, yada, yada. All of that is fair. However, and all of that has quite frankly been fair for the past couple of years. I mean, it was hard to argue against it. This quarter makes you think if the durability of those earnings continue to be as strong as we think they can be, and quite frankly, as strong as Karp is guiding it to be. Last night, he said, I think we can grow revenue in 2027 by 100%. He didn't say that just as a joke. I mean, they probably had a planned understanding of, hey, we're going to drop this 100% number because we have visibility into what would be essentially $15 billion of revenue going into, which would essentially be $8 billion of net income going into 2027, up from the $7.6 billion that they guided for, which was an increase from the $7.2 billion. If they are able to continue compounding that type of revenue at scale in the way that they are doing it for this quarter and for the last quarter, and if they can continue to do this for the next 4 or 5 years, Palantir is not some massively overvalued, expensive company. Is it definitely trading at a premium compared to peers? Yeah, but they're also growing at a premium. It's like the market always wants to pay a premium for growth. Well, you're getting massive, massive growth. You're getting sustainable massive growth, which is why Bank of America raised their target to 250 and Rosenblatt raised their target today to 225. And that sustainable growth, I think, is really the story of Palantir and why this is becoming as exciting as it is. This was the screenshot. Shout out to Dr. Crossroads for capturing the screenshot yesterday when Arnie and I read this quote from Karp on CNBC. I'm planning to grow sales 100% next year, which they don't want to talk about. And we're dealing with fewer people. We're doing it with less people. We have more free cash flow this year than revenue that we had last year. That was my reaction, Arnie's reaction, because that's just pretty unbelievable to really conceptualize and imagine. So look, at scale, they crushed every number they needed to crush. The guide was incredible. One quote from Sham that I think is getting a bit under the radar, and we'll talk more about what he said about Mythos and Apollo, because I thought that stuff was actually really important and also was not given as much attention to. But the quote from him I think was really important. He said, "More tokens means more slop, and the more commodity cognition you consume, the more you need a system that can prevent the economic harm, so you harness the economic value. That system is AIP." That intermediary representation is the ontology, which is what they've been working on for the past 20 years. That is also why we are seeing the death of legacy software. AIP replaces static workflows not by replicating the playbook, but by eliminating the need for one, essentially saying, look, the Salesforces, all these other companies that are saying they're like going to bring AI into the enterprise, they're not actually doing that. It's just more slop, more AI representations of something that could work. You need something that actually harnesses the economic value of your system. That is the ontology. The system for that is the AIP to orchestrate the large language models within that ontology. And that actually creates value. And that is, and that's not just fancy words, just saying it to make sense of some type of metaphorical representation of why Palantir is growing. The numbers prove it. Their net dollar retention is 150%. They are doing, or they're going to do this year, around $7.5 billion of revenue with a little bit over 1,000 customers. I think Chad's comment right here was also really important. He said, the reason we have NDR at 150% is because customers are getting a return on their investments. You buy software that not only works, but solves your actual problems, and you'll do it again and again. It's just basic economics. What Karp means when he talks about giving our customers our unit economics is exactly this. I see it on the front lines every single day. More than ever, customers want me to review their AI strategy as a whole because of the AI slop products or AI injections into existing software they see in the market, versus what Palantir does by helping them refactor their business, making them more different, not more similar. And that is software that actually dominates. So from that perspective, they got 1,000 customers. One day they're going to have 10,000. One day they're going to have 100,000 as a result of that level of growth and the fact that they're growing so fast, so strongly with a few. 1,000 customers in enterprise software is really nothing. And the fact that they're able to get these types of earnings because of that, to me, is just exceptional. I mean, it's hard to really explain how unbelievable these numbers are. And so as you can see right here, there is the revenue growth rate for Palantir. There's not many other software companies that are accelerating at these levels. Again, it was 48% 8 months ago, then 63, then 70, then 85. Next quarter, if that ends up becoming 89 or 90, and then 100 next year, it's just a different league that Palantir is playing in. Chad says, OMG, I made it onto the stream. Chad, you make it onto the stream every day when you roast me in the comments. This time it was just, a much nicer explanation of net dollar retention. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Palantir. I'll probably make a dedicated video on it later today. I was going through the numbers again last night. I mean, just unbelievable. Unbelievable results. If you're an OG Palantir shareholder, I'm not selling a single share. I'll tell you that. I think this company will continue to grow. I think, when the market opens, I think maybe the market's going to get some sense into them and buy up the stock. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If this thing actually goes back to the 130s, 120s, and we see some type of service now type of sell-off, I will be buying more. It's just that simple. There's not many companies you can expect to grow at this sustainable pace that have these types of margins over the coming years that are also seen as beneficiaries of AI and, quite frankly, that are dominating what's happening in AI. So those are my thoughts. I think they will continue to crush it. We'll probably talk more about them throughout the entire day as we get more updates, but I really do think that Palantir showed that they're a different type of company. And yes, the valuation 100% is up there. You obviously have to look into fiscal year 2027, 2028, extract the revenue and earnings growth and say, well, if they trade at 30 times sales in 2029, looking at their 100 times sales right now is not as aggressive, which again requires the intellectual labor of going out into the future to try to make a proclamation on how fast they will grow. But the company has given you, in my opinion, more than enough evidence that they're able to do that. And as a result of that, it continues to be exciting to cover the journey. Also, I think it was a cool thing just for the OG Palantards from 2022 to see the company grow. I remember Karp banging the table in August of 2022 when they grew like 13%, and some analyst asked him a question. And he got pissed off, and he knew it was really Palantir's fault, not the analyst's fault, for why they're not growing as much. And now, they're growing 85%, and it's, quite frankly, one of the most incredible companies on the planet. All right. That is what we got for Palantir. The next company that is up before we get into the other earnings is GrabbyGrab. I don't care what anyone says about this quarter. They demolished the quarter. And quite frankly, my expectations were not for them to demolish the quarter because Q1 is tough. It's not easy. Q1 doesn't have as much tourism. There's not as much momentum. Historically, if you look at their quarters, Q1 was bad. They beat on every metric. And they proved they're not messing around. Street wanted 920. They came in at 955 million. Street wanted 2 cents of EPS. They came in at 4 cents. Street wanted 142 million of adjusted EBITDA. They came at 154 million. I think a lot more people are recognizing when you talk about durability of earnings, what Grab is able to do and how they're able to get these numbers. 24% revenue growth with 120 million in profit, adjusted EBITDA up 46% year over year. This is without the major 2 acquisitions they announced being factored into any of the numbers. Those are expected to close by H2. If that closes by, let's call it Q3, Q4's revenue growth should be north of 30 to 35% when you factor in that type of revenue growth. And then obviously that would be a massive impact on adjusted EBITDA as well. Look, it's not giving you the types of returns that Micron's doing. It's not in the type of narrative that SanDisk is. I get it. And obviously, those stocks go up 3 to 4% every single day. But in terms of a core business that is actually able to not only show the sustainability of growth, but prove their narrative as that Southeast Asia super app that really does have a long trajectory of growth over the next 10 years and quite frankly can, become the regional superpower as it continues to consolidate, to me becomes very exciting. One of the biggest worries was the increase in fuel prices that would affect demand across the region. Because of Grab's scale, they didn't have to worry about that. Transport volumes were actually up 32% year over year in April, showing that the fuel oil prices didn't have a big issue on them. The 8% cap that Indonesia put on Friday, which took Grab down, ironically, 8%, Grab said, this is not a big deal. It's only applicable to 2-wheelers. It represents just 6% of total mobility GMV. And using some calculations, it is going to result in a measly $57 million drop in annualized revenue. Even if that ends up happening, there's likely going to be a larger chance of Grab subsidizing that with other parts of the business, likely the fintech platform that continues to grow at a unprecedented scale. So to me, the biggest thing about the company that has been annoying people is the stock, right? Because the stock is not moving so much. But at the end of the day, I think people are mature enough to say, if the stock is not moving, that's annoying. But if the company is executing at scale, I can live with the stock not moving because I know that eventual re-rating is going to happen. And obviously operating leverage, free cash flow, that's starting to scale very nicely for Grab. The more that starts to scale, the better the free cash flow is going to correspond with the stock price. I mean, we've seen this in every major tech story that exists. Adjusted EBITDA margin is now up 16.2%, up from 13.1% in Q1, and adjusted EBITDA gains are up 46% year over year. If this continues to accelerate, I mean, I just don't see how the stock isn't eventually re-rated. All the analysts reiterated their price targets this morning. Average price target is around $6 to $7, which means, you have a large likelihood, in my opinion, of eventually the street catching on and the market getting a lot more excited about this. The other really impressive thing about this is, again, you had a lot of macro environment concerns from the fuel crisis. Anthony Tan said, our results demonstrate the resilience of our platform, especially as Southeast Asia navigates an uncertain macroeconomic environment. As we look ahead for the rest of the year, we remain committed to delivering durable, profitable growth while standing shoulder to shoulder with our communities, leaning deeply into AI to outserve our users with hyper-personalized experiences. I think that was another big thing about the quarter. AI and the event they had in April kind of showed that their AI strategy is working. They're growing GMV. They're growing monthly active users. I mean, their users grew to 52 million, which is up 16% year over year. Monthly transacting users, their DTUs, also daily transacting users, continues to grow pretty aggressively. The more they grow those users, again, Southeast Asia has 700 million people. 52 million of them are now using Grab every single month. The more that grows, I think the more the revenue, GMV, adjusted EBITDA scales, the more a stock trading at 45% cash starts to become a bit ridiculous with $5 billion in net liquidity. Obviously, I think they're going to use that money to either buy back the stock or continue to make acquisitions that allows them to grow. So look, we're going to see what happens, but at the end of the day, I think this was the right quarter for them to put up the numbers. What happens to the stock? I have no idea. The stock is reacting a bit in the pre-markets. Again, up 6% is not that big of a deal to me, given, it's still under $4. I still think there is probably an opportunity cost in Grab, right? You might do better buying Micron at 610 than buying Grab at 387. I mean, quite frankly, it's more likely you're going to do better on Micron just because the narrative that is there versus Grab. But if you're looking for a compounder where you can sleep well at night, you don't have to worry about anything necessarily destroying the thesis. Maybe the stock doesn't go in the right direction, but in terms of the thesis being intact, I think Grab just proved this quarter is going to be one of the quarters that they need to do for. And this was an important one because this is the quarter they had the most pressure on, not only because of the Southeast Asian fuel crisis, and obviously Grab is a company that relies on fuel prices heavily. So that's a major input cost for them. But I think a lot of people want to see, are these guys legit? They had a good 2024, a good 2025. They became profitable, but are they legit? Are they actually showing the operating leverage at scale that will attract the types of investors that are going to take some serious equity positions in the company for the long term? And I think they proved that by beating on all metrics, especially in a seasonally weak Q1. If they can continue doing that for Q2, Q3, then hopefully we see the stock closer to $5-6 by the end of the year, if not higher than that. I personally think it should be closer to $10 right now. And if that happens, then we should see a good re-rating for Grab. So that is what we got. That is what we got for Palantir and Grab. Let's get into the rest of the news and earnings that we have today. Had some other big headlines last night that I think, quite frankly, were a bit funny to say the least. Bitcoin right there, 81,463. We'll talk more about those companies throughout the stream, but overall, Palantir crushed it. Grab crushed it. Both of them not getting the stock price reaction that they deserve. Hopefully that changes when the market opens. Right now, the semis, even on no news, like Micron's up 5% on no news, which is honestly sucking the liquidity out of a Palantir or a Grab, or out of any other company that you think should be getting a little bit more of a bid, because the Micron flows, the SanDisk flows, they have to be coming from somewhere. I mean, maybe it's sucking the liquidity out of NVIDIA as well. So for whatever reason, those names continue to go higher. The other companies that are putting up earnings that I believe should get a bid aren't getting a bid, but nonetheless, maybe that makes them a better opportunity right now over the long term for what we're seeing. Okay. The other companies that we got. Well, first of all, before we get into those earnings, and we got a lot of them, this one's actually really important. Michael Burry. I don't know what's going on with the guy. Genuinely, I don't know what's going on with the guy, but he sold all of his GameStop. Now, why did he sell all of his GameStop? He said he didn't like the eBay acquisition. 2 days before he ended up selling his GameStop, which was last night, he said, I love the eBay acquisition. And I think the eBay acquisition makes a ton of sense. And then last night he posted, I sold my GME any way I sliced it. The instant Berkshire thesis was never compatible with 5x debt to EBITDA, never okay with my interest coverage under 4x. This to me is absolute insanity. The guy says Ryan Cohen can create the next Berkshire Hathaway. Ryan Cohen then says, I'm going to buy eBay, which we already know is 4 times the market cap of GameStop. And that happened on Friday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Michael Burry is saying, yeah, this makes sense. This is a good idea. And then I think after we saw that interview and maybe he kind of woke up and maybe had some coffee and realized, wait a second, he's going to have to dilute by a lot. He realizes that he's going to have to end up getting rid of his GameStop position because the thesis doesn't make any sense. I think the guy is kind of losing it in terms of how crazy he's going up and down with his different perspectives. And then not only did he sell his GameStop, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is what he said before Palantir had earnings. I would argue Palantir is not just overvaluation. I am shorting the business model. I am shorting the entire premise upon which the company rests. I am shorting the CEO. What is absolutely hilarious for me is that he is long GameStop and then not long GameStop. He is long Salesforce and Adobe. And, he doesn't really have, I guess, an update on his thesis on that, but he just thinks that they're undervalued. And then on Palantir, he's like, I am shorting the entire premise upon which the company rests. That is not just beef with the valuation anymore. Now it's personal for him. And I'm like, I don't understand any rational investor, take your emotions out of it, that will short the entire premise upon which a company's growing at 85%, accelerating revenue growth to 100% rests on. Like, to me, he's doing the most classical mistake that an investor can do. Let their emotions get ahead of them and guide their investing decisions. I mean, at the point where you're saying you're shorting the CEO, but the CEO is putting up 85% revenue growth, you can't short that CEO. I mean, you still can if you want to, but it might not work out for you, especially when you just went long a CEO who's ready to dilute his company by over 250%. And then realize that wasn't the best idea. So maybe tomorrow he'll realize shorting Palantir is not the best idea. But look, even if you still have claims about Palantir's valuation, which, it's fine for him to have those claims, when you see this type of revenue growth, it is hard to be like, I'm shorting the foundation upon which this company rests. So regardless, I thought it was quite hilarious last night that happened, but you're starting to see people kind of struggle with their decisions, and ultimately they're going to have to come to grips with how they interpret Palantir or, interpret the rest of the growth stocks in this environment that, quite frankly, just aren't growing as fast as a name like Palantir. All right, the other earnings that we had today. So a couple of different headlines before we get into it. Google is raising $9 billion from its record euro bond sale. That's what's getting Google to, is Google up or down? Google is up a little bit. All right, so Google raising about $9 billion. The UK 30-year government bond yield is now 5.7%. We've been talking a lot about bond yields. That is not a good thing to see the UK's 30-year bond. That's the highest level since May of 1998. I still don't think the market at all-time highs necessarily is sustainable with the Treasury yield pushing 4.5%. Now, granted, the earnings growth is the pushback against that, which is quite frankly why I guess the market is able to persist above it. But you do have a lot of people questioning how the hell does the market keep going up where the bond yields keep going up, and maybe something breaks or maybe something doesn't break. I think we're all going to find out in real time. But as of now, it's not just Japan, not just the United States. Now it's the United Kingdom. So you're seeing that happen across the world. And maybe, quite frankly, the fact that bonds are spiking at this level, or at least yields on those bonds are spiking at this level, is why Bitcoin is catching a bid, because people might just be saying, you know what, I'm selling my bonds and I'm getting into an asset that I think can hedge against inflation. Now, granted, Bitcoin's been acting more like a risk-on asset versus an asset that can actually hedge against inflation. But who knows? Theoretically, maybe that's the reason why BTC is catching a bid. Then you had PayPal. They're down. Wow, I did not know PayPal was down 9%. I thought they were down 1% last time I checked. What did these guys say? PayPal. So let's get into the earnings. They beat by 6% on EPS, 134 versus 127. Beat by 4% on revenue. EPS is up 1% year over year. Revenue is up 7% year over year. I imagine that the CEO ended up saying something on the call just like last time that the street didn't like, which has happened more often than not, quite frankly. Okay. We have to go deeper into that for PayPal. That's a double beat. Don't know why the street's upset. Shopify, 36 cents versus 33 cents. That's a beat by 9%. Wow, Shop also down 8%. Could you guys have imagined if Palantir didn't crush the way they... I mean, Palantir would have been down 15% right now. That's why there was so much pressure yesterday. It's like if you are a company that's beating, but you're not absolutely demolishing the numbers with your beats, especially if you're trading at a premium like Palantir is at, you get destroyed. And that's why it was so impressive for them to put up those numbers, because they really had a lot riding on them. 3.17 versus 3.09 billion on the revenue. Revenue's up 34% year over year. EPS is up 44% year over year. I don't know what the street is that upset about when it comes to Shopify or PayPal. I will play the classic PayPal earnings video reaction towards the end of the show. I forgot PayPal was today. Otherwise, I would have played it last night. It's like a quarterly tradition for us to watch that. Video. But there you go. Shopify and PayPal not really getting any love from the street right here. I'm sure we'll find out a little bit later throughout the day what exactly the street was upset about. DigitalOcean, this one's been catching a lot more of a bid. This one's actually up 15% in the pre-markets. They beat pretty aggressively, 69% on EPS, 44 cents versus 26 cents expected. EPS is still down year over year, but revenue 257 versus 249. That beat by 3%, and that continues to catch a bid. So you're seeing a DOCN. I know we've talked about this about 2 weeks ago. $11.35 billion company, 19 0.7% up in the pre-market. Cloud computing provider, not necessarily your sexiest AI name, but definitely a name that has been starting to get a lot more buzz. And that one continues to go green. AMD is not today in the morning. AMD is after hours, so we'll talk more as we get into the rest of the show around AMD. We do have one headline on Micron. This could be the reason why it's going up. Micron ships world's first 245 terabyte data center SSD. This is driving 82% fewer racks versus HDD, built on advanced G9 QLC NAND technology, and is targeting AI, cloud, hyperscale, and enterprise workloads. I do think a couple analysts knew this was already launching a few weeks ago, so it might not necessarily be brand new news for Micron, but definitely a headline that could be pumping the stock. Micron right there, 604, up 5%, 245 TB data center for SSD. That might be your core reason why a Micron and a SanDisk are getting some love right here. SanDisk up another 2%. It looks like it's going to pass 1,300 as the market opens. Micron right there getting above 600. Hertz is also bringing 8,000 vehicles onto the eBay marketplace. Ironically, where is eBay right here? eBay is down 1%, so losing a lot of that premium that it got from that GameStop sale. GameStop also, now that Burry is out, is down 1.24%. So you got GameStop and eBay potentially taking a little bit of a tumble after Burry discloses that he's out. SMCI, that's up 2%. They also have earnings after the bell. Meta's up about 1%. Amazon, we got a headline right here. Now, Amazon took a lot of market share from UPS and FedEx yesterday in terms of at least the way the street is perceiving it. UPS and FedEx both have their worst days in about a decade, down about 10% each. Amazon launches same-day grocery delivery across the U.S. 2,300 locations. Business Prime members get free delivery on orders over 25. Wow, that's actually a good deal. That's actually a really good deal. Business Prime members get free delivery orders on orders over 25. Non-members pay $12.99 delivery fee regardless of order size. And this is for businesses. So this is like if you're a business that needs to order groceries for your entire employees or snacks or drinks or whatever, you would kind of call up Amazon Business Delivery and you would have same-day locations. It would probably be over $25, which means you would probably pay the subscription. Otherwise, why would you pay $13 just to order $100 worth of stuff? And boom, that's probably another revenue line for Amazon. This is absolutely incredible. Amazon right there, 274. Street's finally giving it a little bit more attention as they continue to launch more and more stuff that, just gets you to remember that Amazon is not a joke. This is a chart that I think is also really important. This is the rapid rise. We'll talk about the Iran acquisition in a second. This is the rapid rise in the delivery game for Amazon. 2015, they used to have basically 2% of the market. They now have 28% of the market. You can see UPS, United States Postal Service, and FedEx have all declined their share, whereas Amazon has gained their share. Bitcoin continuing to make a move. That one's trying to go for 82. And that's why that's good for Amazon. 81.6 on BTC. That's obviously helping Hood, helping Coinbase, and also helping MicroStrategy as those have earnings up. I don't know why Fastly's up today. I don't think they had earnings. 29.47. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they had earnings. So that one, or no, did they have earnings? No. Okay, so we'll have to see. I'll have to see, but that one's getting a bit of a bid right there. Oh, because yeah, that actually makes sense because of the DigitalOcean beat. That's actually, yep, that's a fair point. They kind of play in that same sector. All right, so DigitalOcean basically showing that Fastly's likely going to have a pretty monster quarter, or at least a decent quarter. Maybe the street is front running that. Ferrari also had earnings, 272 versus 279 on EPS. That was a miss by 3%. They beat on revenue, 2.16 billion versus 2.15. Ticker symbol is RACE, RACE. That stock is basically flat. Pre-market down 0.10%. Oil also down 3%. Nice to see oil at 103. It's still above 100, which is not nice, but it is coming down, which is a good thing. Okay, Iran, they acquired Mirantis. Daniel Roberts said, Mirantis helps us do it better, strengthening how compute is deployed, managed, and operating for customers. And that, I think, is actually really nice to see before we get into the earnings for them. It's a provider of cloud infrastructure, Kubernetes-based orchestration, and enterprise support services. The acquisition of branches builds on Iren's existing software, engineering, and customer support capabilities, enhancing how compute is deployed, managed, and operated for customers. Dare I say, this kind of reminds me of some of the Nebius acquisitions that have been recently happening, not at the same scale, but at its core, Iren is not just trying to deploy the data center, they're trying to effectively make sure that the tokens that are generated within the data center and the cloud workloads that they're enabling on top of their GPUs are meaningful and are efficient for their customers. And yeah, you're gonna have to acquire different names that are out there to help you do that, because Iren was a Bitcoin miner, so it's not like they intrinsically understand how to do that. And so I think if they're going to dilute to be able to acquire those types of companies to make those deployments more successful, that actually makes a lot of sense. Now we just need a deal. And hopefully on Thursday, we're going to be able to get a deal. Iren is following in Nebius footsteps by adding software. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of when I heard the acquisition. Again, it's not the exact same type of acquisition, but it's in the same realm of what they ultimately are trying to do. BTC, again, making a move, 81.5. ETH should be at 2,400, right? 2393, just below 2,400. Fastly's up 7%. Amazon's up 1%. UPS up a little bit. Take-Two's up 2%. AppCellera's up 13. They did not have earnings. I think they might have had some results come out potentially for their drugs. That's why that one's getting a bit. Air Test Systems up a little bit, and then Rambus as well, up 1.3. Palantir, 143.71. I am very curious to see where the street takes this in 13 minutes. Are we getting a dump? Are we going back down to 135? Are we getting the ServiceNow treatment? Or is the street going to be like, you know what, we just cannot. I mean, last time it got to 160, 170, the fundamentals weren't nearly as good as it is right now. And I know the world has changed since then. Thoughts on software have changed, but maybe there's an argument that Palantir just continue to go. Trump was just live on Newsmax, I believe. Here is what he had to say. This was like 10 minutes ago.
Well, most of it comes back into the United States. Well, the people of Iran. So, look, if they had guns, which they don't have, if they had guns, guns were sent and other people took those guns. If they had guns, they would fight back. I'm convinced of that. But, you can't have an unarmed population against people with AK-47s and stand there, even if you have 250,000 people. So, you started off by asking me, would I like to see them? And I'm very torn on it because they lost 42,000 people in the first 2 weeks. I don't really want to see that. They have to have guns. And I think they're getting some guns. As soon as they have guns, they'll fight like as good as anybody there is. But when you have people that are armed.
He's talking about the civilians there, if they're able to supply them with guns. I guess Trump is implying they could potentially have an uprising. We'll talk about Duolingo and Pinterest in a second, but here's what Hegseth had to say as well when he was asked about if the ceasefire is over or not.
Last 24 hours or so, Iran's fired at us. We fired at Iran. I'm just going to ask you more directly. Is the ceasefire over?
No, the ceasefire is not over. Ultimately, this is a separate and distinct project. And we expected there would be some churn at the beginning, which happened. And we said we would defend aggressively, and we absolutely have. Iran knows that. And ultimately, the president's going to make a decision whether anything were to escalate into a violation of a ceasefire. But certainly we would urge Iran to be prudent in the actions that they take to keep that underneath this threshold. This is about the straits. This is about freedom of navigation. This is about international waterways. This is about free flow of commerce, all the things that happened before. And only Iran is contesting. So right now, the ceasefire certainly holds, but we're going to be watching very, very closely. Absolutely.
We did fire at Iran last night, and they fired at our proxies. The market not caring about it too much, oil not being affected by it too much, but time will tell if this actually ends up leading to massive escalation. My gut reaction is no. I think both sides at the end of the day just don't want to go back to bombing each other, even if they are having some proxy attacks, and hopefully the market is able to look past that as well. But we're going to have to see if this ends up resulting in any level of meaningful negotiation over the coming weeks. Palantir right there, down about 1.96%. Robinhood getting more of the bid. It was at 84 before earnings, fell all the way to 69. Now back at 79, I would say primarily as BTC starts to go up a little bit. Duolingo. Okay, so this stock went up to 125, then went down to 92. Now it's at 104. So a lot of crazy reactions here on Duolingo. The major reason why they are down 5% is simple. Bookings growth is bad. Every other metric they beat on in a pretty healthy way, except the metric that I think the street really cares about. So bookings growth in Q1 2025 was 42%. Q1 2026 is 9%. That's it. That's a simple thesis. I mean, that it's really hard to buy a stock when the core metric on what determines revenue growth and eventually profitability is down at the level that it's down at in just 5 quarters. So that would be why I think you kind of stay away from Duolingo here, unless you are willing to take the risk that they'll reaccelerate that again. Revenue they beat, EPS they beat, DAUs they beat, bookings are up 14% year over year, but the guide on bookings is just not good. And yeah, I mean, there's just not, at the end of the day, as exciting as a company may be, if they're not able to grow their core metric as importantly as they need to. Now, maybe one could argue it's oversold enough and that's priced in, sure, but obviously that's why the market is not the happiest about it right now, and that's why it's down 5%. Pinterest was down 20% going into the print. It's now up 20%. They actually had a relatively impressive quarter, which was good enough to get the street to give it a move. Again, this earnings season is so unpredictable. Like, imagine if you wanted to play earnings yesterday and you were like, should I buy 1,000 shares of Pinterest, or should I buy 1,000 shares of Duolingo, or 1,000 shares of Palantir, or however you're going to play it? Like, Palantir had a unbelievably stronger quarter than Pinterest. But Palantir, because of whatever you want to say about it, valuation, premium, whatever, even though it was also down 20% year to date, gets nothing, and Pinterest gets a 20% pump. Like, it's real. Like, Meta 9% down, Microsoft 5% down, even though one could argue their earnings were better than all the other companies that reported. But Pinterest, they beat by 23% on EPS, they beat by 4% on revenue, decent beats. But I guess the narrative was so bad on Pinterest that they had nowhere to go but up. Same thing with Atlassian. I mean, Atlassian was down 70% going into their print. Atlassian is still down, even after the 40% reversal, 39.8% year to date. So the company to play on earnings last week was Atlassian, even though it didn't seem like, that was going to be the one to play, because ServiceNow, which is also a software company, fell 15% after they put up massive numbers. So yeah, Palantir is down because the mics didn't work. That's your main reason. I mean, so from that perspective, I think it's been really tough to gamble on earnings. People might think SanDisk was going to do amazing, then it fell 8%, and if you panic sold, you missed the 8% reversal. We'll see what happens with Micron going into June, but right now earnings are literally a coin toss, and the question is just going to be how durable are these earnings growth going into Q2. Palantir down about 2%, Robinhood up 3%, Fastly's up 7%, Bitcoin 81.6%, Amazon at 272. Okay, so those were all the earnings, right? Those were all the earnings. I think we got through most of them. Piper Sandler, by the way, upgraded ServiceNow to 140. Oh, ServiceNow actually did have a pretty impressive set of stats yesterday. They are planning to get to $30 billion of revenue by 2030, which would double the growth that they're seeing right now. They want to get to a rule of 50, and they want to continue maintaining their operating leverage. So I think some of the street's going to get a little bit more excited about what ServiceNow is able to do. I know it's a heavy retail stock, and they've been able to put up some pretty strong numbers in that event that they had. But, once again, how much is the market going to believe that the monetization of their system is going to be as strong as it is? These were the metrics from it right here. So this is what they've been able to do over the past 10 years. This is where they think most of the value is going to go to. $600 billion now they believe is their TAM for AI data, workflow, and security. And they believe they'll have a rule of 60 by fiscal year 30. For context, Palantir has a rule of 145, right? So if you say Palantir has a premium already absurd compared to ServiceNow, it's like, yeah, but Palantir has double the rule of 40. And that's resulting in way faster EPS growth. And if they sustain that, that's the only question on Palantir, in my opinion. Can they sustain that? Because if they do, they're going to blow every other software company out of the water, because they're just going to grow faster. Eventually, they're going to catch up. ServiceNow is talking about 30 billion of revenues by 2030. Palantir is talking about 15 billion of revenues next year. If they compound that, they'll be at 30 billion or at least 25 billion by 2028. They're going to be closing in on ServiceNow revenue target 2 years ahead of them if they are able to keep up that growth. That is why this is so exciting when it comes to the acceleration of that growth. And it's going to be up to the street to say how much that is ultimately worth to them. Speaking of software companies that have not been able to catch a bid, Zeta, you had Mr. David Steinberg doing a impromptu kind of fireside chat with Dan Ives yesterday, and someone stopped by that you guys might be curious to see. I definitely was excited to see him there, but good old Jensen hanging around with David Steinberg. I don't know if we read into that, but it's nice to see Mr. Jensen Huang just chilling with a software company that just grew 50% and, is trying to continue that growth. Hopefully, maybe we get a little bit of Jensen touch right there, but it would be pretty nice. Steinberg also mentioned Palantir when he was talking in this conference in this clip right here.
It goes back, like, part of why I think Palantir has been so successful is, like, if you work with them as a customer and you do their own, they could show results. And I think, but like, to some extent, like, you guys are almost like, there's a lot of similar DNA in terms of, like, this is not taught. Like, you're
and because of you, we're spending more time with them and getting to know them better, and it's been really interesting. But what I would say is the thing that the Palantir guys do just so incredibly well is they solve problems and they execute, and that's sort of key to success in almost.
He also said, you think you're growing fast at 50%, but then you see Palantir's growth and you realize you're not even growing at all. So I like the ambition by Steinberg, and hopefully the market eventually is able to see the potential there and get a re-rating on a name like Zeta. I ran right there up 2%. Bitcoin 81.4. You got Dogecoin making a move. Qualcomm, which was down 5% yesterday, that is up right now. Circle, massive move yesterday. Massive move. Circle up another 3%. I guess that Clarity Act is getting people to be a lot more excited about the potential for these crypto names. Quite frankly, that could also be part of the reason why Bitcoin's getting a bid if that Clarity Act is starting to come more into fruition. ServiceNow, that's up 1.4. Lumentum, I believe, has earnings today. That's up 1%. And then you have AMD after the bell. So Shopify down on earnings, PayPal down on earnings, Ferrari down on earnings. DigitalOcean, the only one that's really catching a bit. Pfizer, they beat by 4% on EPS, beat by 5% on revenue. Pfizer is... Are these guys down? Pfizer is up a little bit. That's flat. Eaton Corporation, they beat by 3% on EPS, beat by 4% on revenue. Again, even if you don't own these names, these are massive companies. Eaton is a $163 billion company, down 5%. Not the best to see, but double beat. And part of the reason we need to justify the multiple that we have on the S&P is these companies continue to beat on earnings. And so regardless of what happens to the stock, at least if these companies are beating, it's proving, once again, that they deserve to at least have a chance to get a premium on their name. All right, we got a minute. Let's see what happens. Again, I don't think Palantir should collapse. If the street takes it down, the street takes it down. There's not really much we can do about it. I don't think this thing deserves to go below 140, but then again, who knows what the street's going to do. Grab absolutely crushed earnings. If you want my coverage on it, just scroll back to the first 25 minutes of the market open, and we talked about it. It's up 4%. Will it sustain its 4%? We got to see. A lot of that liquidity is going into these AI supply chain, photonics, and memory names right now. It's just the reality of this market that we're in. And so we got to see if there's any money left for some of these other names that are out there. Adobe's up a little bit. Figma's up a little bit. Figma was at $20 yesterday, $20 in the pre-market. Amcor's up 2%. Intel, which fell yesterday at 95, back at 100 as Intel continues to get some love. And then Amazon, can it open at all-time highs? It's at 276. 277.14 was the all-time high in the pre-markets last week after earnings. So we would have to get it open above 277 to see if we can get there. Frogger Finn says, it's my birthday. All right. We got to ring the bell to open up the global capital equity markets, but we are also ringing it for Frogger Finn. Happy birthday. And thank you for being part of the show. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Palantir opens at 142.25. 142.25. Let's see where the street takes it. That is your open, down about 2.34%. Robinhood up 1%, but slightly starting to fall now as Bitcoin is above 81,000. Fastly, that's up 8%. They didn't have earnings, but the DigitalOcean earnings kind of proved that Fastly is likely going to have a good run. 29.72 as that one continues to go green. NVIDIA, 198. This one continues to be flat below 200. Pinterest up 17%. Salesforce goes down ServiceNow goes down. Software, IGV goes down. I would imagine Microsoft, it's not down yet, but it looks like it's about to go red. 415.20. That's up 0.45%. Robinhood starting to lose a lot of its momentum. Grab up 3%. It was up 6%. So that one's starting to lose a little bit of its excitement as well. Elf goes red. Adobe goes red. Figma goes red. Figma was green pre-market. Amcor is up. Palantir, it is really struggling to hold on to any level of 140. We're going to see if that one can sustain itself right there. But Palantir right there, 141.20 on the day. IWM 280, that's green. Small caps are up. Applied Digital is up. Where is Nebius? This was at 175 yesterday, 171. Not too bad. Down just a little bit from that 170 level, holding the 170s. Air Test Systems, that goes up 1%. Meta, 611. That was also basically flat since earnings. Tesla, 397. Tesla, one could argue, didn't have the best earnings out of all the Max 7, but it's had better price reaction than freaking Microsoft and Meta. So there are people that continue to trust more in Elon and his vision going into Q2 over Nadella and Zucks right here. Tesla, 398. Let's see if we can get 400. AMD, 348. This one dumped after hours yesterday. It went from 360 to 345, back up to 348, which is nice to see. Let's see if we can hold on to 350 as we get into the print. PayPal, which they had a double beat, goes down 11%. I don't know what to say about PayPal. I really don't know what to say about PayPal here. But, I mean, it is what it is, right? It is what it is, I guess. Palantir is starting to get hit pretty badly as well. PayPal, 10.3%. Microsoft, 415. Palantir loses 140. We have last 140 on Palantir. That one still goes down. Amazon 277, that's up 1.86%. Where is Intel? Oh, Amazon, that is close to all-time. Yeah, no, we hit all-time highs. There you go. Amazon, all-time highs, 277.40. All-time highs. Let's see if 280 is on the table. Amazon and Intel, my goodness, Intel up another 8.5%. I mean, this is where the street wants to allocate their capital. Microsoft basically flat. Palantir trying to get back to 140. Nebius 172. Tesla hit 400. Wolf is at 23. Amazon and Intel, I guess, are your stories of the day. Shopify wrecked, down 9%. Again, Shopify and Palantir, both software names. I don't know what you have to do to impress the street if you're a software company, right? I guess 70% growth is not enough. Palantir 141 right there. As that one continues to go red. Robinhood 77.97. Fastly back above 30. Very nice. And then Micron, yeah, it's going to the moon. It's at this point completely going to the moon. Google right here, 388. Google hits a new all-time high along with Amazon. So at least big tech getting some love. SanDisk should be at 1,300, right? Yep, 1,300. 4% up on SanDisk. Micron up another 7%. Your memory names continue to go crazy. DRAM, that ETF up another 5% as well. SK Hynix was up 15% yesterday. So, the memory names absolutely not slowing down right here. And your CPU names, I would imagine AMD catches a bit if Intel's up 8%. AMD kind of not really having the same type of love as an Intel right here, but Intel is getting it. And Micron right there at 615. Wolf up 2.7. Where is CoreWeave? This hit 129 yesterday, 123. So that one taking a breather. I ran with the acquisition yesterday. I ran holding on to 50. Holding on to 50 at the moment. Google 387. That's up 1.17. Micron 615. Micron was at 520 yesterday. So the run it's had even this week has been incredible. Zandu, which fell 60% yesterday. That's up 3%. Nokia, are we getting a run? A little bit. BlackBerry, kind of the pump faded yesterday from 650 to 570. Now it's up about 16 cents, but that's up a little bit right now, but not too much. SPY, are we at all-time highs? We are very close to all-time highs. At this point, we looked at that stat. Micron is the majority of the it's 51% of the EPS growth in the S&P 500 in general. So as Micron goes up, and the earnings projections go up, that's also where the S&P's earnings projections continue to go higher. Applied Digital, that's up 2.6. Apple back to 280. This was at 273 yesterday after falling from 285. That one's getting a little bit more of a bid. I mean, most of the names that are going really green right here, once again, are memory and supply chain inside of AI. Qualcomm not catching some excitement. This one's been down about 8% over the past couple of days, but it's up 30% over the past month, so you can't be too upset. Rocket Lab 8150 back above 80. TSM, are we getting a bid? TSM is also trying to go green right now, still red. And then Tesla is your Mag 7 outside of Amazon and Google. That's really, really getting a pump. Chopped Garlic says, Amit, it's my 30th B-Day. I took the day off from work, but I can't miss the stream. Chopped Garlic, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you own one of these names that's going crazy right now. And you're getting a nice little 30th birthday. DOCN, 30%. This is actually very bullish for Fastly. I mean, this is actually, so if you don't own DOCN, if you got into Fastly a while ago, 24, 25, look at that, Fastly at 30, basically in the same ballpark. Again, cloud computing, AI infrastructure, even if it's not exactly the same, that's where the street wants to be. And that's where the dollars are flowing into. Nokia as well, getting a 3.8% move. Cypher also catching a bid, 5%, with Iran right there. It's good to see. MasterCard and Visa, are those up? MasterCard is down. Visa is down. Why are those down? I don't know. The Clarity Act is not bearish for those two companies. From my understanding, it's actually part of the reason it's being disputed is because it's so bullish for those companies. Again, Visa took a hit this year because the stablecoin narrative became some type of argument for why Visa would be dead, which seems laughable. But Visa right there, 322. It is down a lot from its earnings pump around the 340s. Wolf, that's up 2.6. Intel just keeps going. 105. 105 on Mr. Intel. Palantir, 142.50. 142.50. Let's see if this one can get back above or at least stay within this range. We did fall to 138.70, so the street did take it down below 140 for a second. UPS is up a little bit. GameStop, again, Michael Burry sold all of his GameStop yesterday. ASTS getting another 2% down day, 67.35. That's down 1.58%. That space narrative starting to just not really come to fruition. Luna right there, 26.77. That's up 5% as well. So I guess ASTS in particular is getting hit more. Poets up 7.3. Western Digital up 5% again. Seagate up another 4%. Meta straight down. Meta, Palantir. I mean, companies that are putting up earnings that you would imagine are pretty reasonable, a little bit more than reasonable, can't catch a bid. Same thing with Zeta, can't catch a bid. Where's Reddit? Reddit should at least be 172. There you go. I don't think Reddit easily goes back to the 150s. I could see it going back to 165. It was almost there last night. But, Reddit's a smaller company, I guess, than some of the other ones mentioned. And their 70% revenue growth seems easier to compound. 172.68 on Reddit. The Googs, 390 on deck. There you go. 389.50 right there. Yeah, you need 85% growth to stay flat. You are giving me massive FOMO. Please remember, I've talked about this so many times. I don't keep talking about it because everyone has to make their own decisions here. But we spent a lot of time talking about this yesterday. Do not buy something that you don't fundamentally understand, or you're buying for the sake of buying it because it's going up. It usually doesn't work out. Sometimes it might. And maybe buying Micron at 630, it might work out going to 750. But if you don't know why you're doing it, and Micron starts going down, and then you sold your stock at a 52-week low to buy a stock at a 52-week high, you have to have discipline and patience with yourself. Sometimes it's okay to say you missed something. I missed SanDisk. I missed it. It is what it is. I am not going to buy this stock up 3,500% over there. I'm just not going to do it. And that will probably result in underperformance if this thing goes to 2,000. I get it, but you cannot let the wisdom of the crowds persuade you to do something, because the quicker you do that, the easier you have a chance of just having it fall flat on your head. Intel, it's okay if you missed it. If you missed it, you missed it. Now, if you don't think you missed it because Intel's still a great deal at 105 or Micron's still a great deal at 600, then you buy. If you think it's a good deal, you buy. If you don't think it's a good deal and you're just buying it for the hell of buying it because it's going up, you have to just really monitor your emotions there. And it's not easy. And that's what I'm saying. Even if I bring it up, it's not going to stop people or help people. Like, everyone has to go through their own tuition of dealing with FOMO. And I've, trust me, been through it many times in the past as well. And now I think, I just have a more mature mindset, and it is what it is if you miss something. Amcor right there, that's up 5% as well. That continues to go green as that's not slowing down. IBIT, is that up? IBIT 4609, that's up 1.5%. Jason says, did you miss the short? Jason, are you shorting memory? I don't think Jason's shorting memory. Unless he is. Jason, let us know. Are you shorting memory? Are you shorting Intel? Or you think these are too much? Fastly's up because of DOCN, DigitalOcean. Yeah, Jason says no shot. Okay, that's what I thought, Jason. Dude, like it's hard to short these names because they are rocket ships, but it's also hard to buy, and that is okay. It is okay to tell yourself, look, I'm not going to take the chance here, but I'm also not going to bet against it. I mean, we've seen that happen with Palantir so many times, right? People saying, look, I can't short it, but the valuation means I can't buy it. It's like, okay, that's fine. It is what it is. Intel, 11%, 106. 106 right here. Oust is reporting today. That's also fair. Ouster, that's up 5%. That's going to be important. Where's the other company that was important? What was the other one we were going to look at? Ouster, and then, SoFi. Where's their price action today? SoFi, once again, goes flat. A-Lab, that's up 5.5%. Again, these networking plays getting some love, packaging plays getting some love, memory plays getting some love. How about photonics? Photonics plays, once again, getting some love. AAOI up 5.2%. Lumentum is also, wow, there you go, 1,000. 2.4%. Again, just really, really important to not let FOMO get the best of you. And that is not to say the companies that are running can't keep running, but it's also to say if you are feeling this necessity to buy it because you're not in it, that is classic FOMO. And you have to ask yourself, is it to the point where it is becoming like harmful on your mental health, which is probably a signal to maybe stay out of it, or tell yourself that it's just not worth taking the risk. Or you spend a couple of days, do a deep dive on the company and be like, no, everyone's got it right. I'm wrong. This thing is going up way higher than this. And then you jump in. I don't think any of the two are wrong scenarios, but it has to be a personal decision. And I'm just not buying Intel at 107. I'm not. It's probably going to 150. I can't take the risk with that. Capital is too hard to come around to be able to take those types of risks. And so if you feel like Microsoft's a better buy than Intel, even though Microsoft's not going to do as well as Intel, then I think that's okay as well to allocate capital in that direction. Amazon right there, 277. 277. That's trying to go for 279. To see if that can go green. SoundHound, are you getting a dump? SoundHound is getting a dump. That's down 5%. AXTI, that one continues to rally as well. Up 3.2%. You can just use a stop loss. Okay, so when most people talk about getting into a name, they are not talking about trading it. When most people are saying, I want to buy Micron here, they're talking about as an investment. Not a lot of people trade. Obviously, yes, a stop loss is a good idea. If you buy Micron at 625, put your stop loss at 615 and just accept that you lost $10. But also, why the hell are you buying Micron at 627 if you're not prepared for it to go back to 600? Like, it is unreasonable as an investor to buy a stock at 630 now and have it go to 615 and be like, well, the thesis is over. I'm out of the position. It's completely done. I need to get the hell out. It's like, no, like stocks are going to go up or down. And if you get stopped out of that position, then obviously you're trading it. But if you're trying to invest in it, you have to welcome a 3% decline. You can't get scared out of the position because the stock's down 3%. But nonetheless, do you trust that this is the right time to get in? CoreWeave, that also flipped green, 126.45. Is that one's going up as well. Microsoft dumping every day, so annoying. Might dump it and put it all into Oracle instead. Oracle was actually up in the pre-markets, and then it flipped red, 179.80. All the neo clouds kind of flipped red, even though they're slightly red. Oracle as well, barely red, but it did lose some of some of it's green right there. Google, 392. Do we have macro data today? I don't think we do. Let me see. Oh, we did get one piece of data just now. U.S. farmer sentiment. I don't even know we track farmer sentiment. Declines in April amid input costs and availability concerns. Global services PMI, we just got that as well a minute ago. 51 versus 51.3. Composite PMI, 51.7 versus 52.1. Two beats. One miss on PMI, a beat on services PMI, a miss on composite PMI. I don't know if the market is going to care that much about that. Do we have jolts? We have jolts today? Usually we get those on Thursdays, right? Oh, we do have jolts today. Okay, so in about 15 minutes, we will get jolts. Street's expecting 6.84 million jobs. 6.84 million jobs. Micron up 10, SanDisk up 7. Broadcom, are you starting to get a move? Broadcom, yes, starting to get a move, 2.24. And then you have NVIDIA, which is back to 200 at least, but definitely not reporting the types of results that, or at least showing the type of price action that these other companies are doing. Seagate, that was at 580 before the print, 782. I think everyone has to come to grips with the reality of this market right now. We've been talking about it for the past couple of days, but Jason has been talking about it so many times. The raging bull market is not in the companies like a Shopify that are growing 35% year over year, that go down 10%. It is in the AI infrastructure and supply chain names. And you either have to make a decision that you're going to get exposure to it or not. I think thankfully most of us have exposure to it in some way or the other, even if it's just NVIDIA, even if it's just AMD, which are the more basic parts of exposure to it, given all these smaller companies that are the nuts and bolts of this entire, I guess you could argue, hardware revolution around AI, whether it's memory, photonics, et cetera. But, that's where the capital is going to right now. And I don't know when the capital decides to not go to it, but if it continues to go there, that's where the market is going to continue to be. Fastly, massive 16% move right there. Massive 16%. Fastly right there, $32. Obviously a pretty big move from the low 20s. So, you might see people taking profits here, which is not crazy. But the reason it's up is because DigitalOcean, 35%. Goodness gracious. Do you have Fastly? Yes, I have it at 24.70. This might be a day, quite frankly, to take some profits on Fastly. It always was a trade. And it kind of hit the target I was looking for, which was those early 30s. And it's going up on someone else's earnings, which is, always a good sign that the industry is good, but it's definitely providing you an exit right there. Fastly, 32 up 16%. DigitalOcean up 36%. What about HIMS? HIMS down 3. Again, HIMS, Rocket Lab, Palantir, SoFi. I mean, all these companies, throw Microsoft and Meta in there, which is crazy that we have to throw those in there, but the street doesn't care. The street does not care. ServiceNow down 2%. PayPal down 9%. I don't know what the hell the PayPal team said to get in. I mean, PayPal's already down like 80% from the highs. The fact that it's going down another 9% after they beat on earnings is a little weird. BM&R, that's up about 1.8. SMCI goes red. Nike goes red. Elf goes red. Adobe goes red. Figma goes red. Rubrik about to go red. So that one still down. So again, we'll get JOLTS data in a little bit. U.S. Global Services PMI 51 versus 51.3. And then composite PMI 51.7 versus 52.1. Both of those misses didn't really affect the market too much. We are pushing along 722. Duolingo, is that still down? Down 5. It was down a lot worse. It was down a lot worse last night. So maybe not horrible. Cypher had earnings today? I did not know that. Cypher, let me pull up their earnings. Got the Shopify president on. We'll look at him in a second. Double miss on earnings. Stock still up 6%. Wow. Yeah, missed on revenue. 34 versus 36. Street doesn't care. Street does not care. I mean, again, Cypher is one of those AI infrastructure names in the context of neoclouds. If Shopify's down after beating by 5% and Cypher's up after missing by 5%, it goes to show you the psychology of where the street is taking these stocks. Oracle flips green, Google 391, Corning, that's another AI infrastructure name, that is up 5.3%, 168.62, continues to be green. I mean, imagine the street's probably buying Cypher on the idea that they get a deal soon. They have that Google collaboration along with TeraWolf. ASTS and Rock Lab officially go red. Palantir looking like it wants to lose 139 at this point, 139.12. Let's see where it bottoms at. If we do get a bottom today, I would imagine this 137 to 139 range is where maybe the street chills out. That tends to be where it bottomed out when IGV has a red day. IGV is having a full red day, that 1%. NVIDIA loses 200 again. I mean, you're just seeing a massive rotation. Pinterest lost a lot of its pump as well, 25 down to 23, 18% to 12%, but still pretty green on the day. Salesforce down 2, as that is also down. Firefly also, yeah, they had a decent earnings. That pumped up to 40, now down to 32. So once again, these space names, even companies that have good earnings, are not really getting some love. Nokia, we put this on the watch list on Monday. The call option volume in this is unbelievable. Like, it's very strong. So I just think if you trust the option flow on this, you got people betting this is going to be a $20, $25 stock. And as a trade, it's getting a lot of love. BlackBerry right there, 572. That is up 2.5. NVIDIA still down. Ondas, which has had some dilution concerns, unfortunately. That stock down another 4%. SanDisk will be the first stock to hit 5 figures. Yeah, at this point, send it to 10,000, right? At this point, send it to 10,000. Micron and SanDisk, the stories of the year, which quite frankly, they were the stories of the year last year as well. Micron up 99% this year. SanDisk year to date is up 385% now, as it's green. Yeah, Palantir getting the dump right there. But see, that dump is also software dump more than anything else. I mean, every SaaS name, once again, getting hit. The only names that are kind of green are CrowdStrike, which is green by 28 cents, Twilio, which had good earnings, and then Cloudflare. Everything else, Oracle, which is more so data center, Salesforce, Mongo, Atlassian. Dude, Atlassian down 5. Snowflake down 2. Palantir losing 138. All right, let's see if it holds 137 now. Let's see if it can at least hold 137. Intuit down 3. Zscaler down 2. SoFi getting hit. All of these getting wrecked right here. 1605. What about Nokia? We talked about it on Monday. They have this Anduril partnership. They also, Jensen owns 3% of the company. I mean, I think NVIDIA buying it alone is what's getting people excited. Now, Jensen bought this a while ago and the street didn't care, but as they've started to, they had a really good earnings, revenue's growing 4%, not a massive revenue growth, but like that potential that people see in 6G infrastructure. I think that's part of the reason why this is also getting people to get some love. Shopify president, let's have him come on the screen and explain exactly why he thinks the market's not loving it.
Is what the overwhelming evidence of what the stock market's saying. When I read through your conference call and I read through your notes, I don't detect that same level of pessimism that Wall Street seems to have decided in a shroud over your stock today.
I totally agree with you. Q1 demonstrated Shopify's incredible growth. It demonstrated consistent results, and I think also real AI leadership. GMV was $101 billion, Jim. That's up 35%. That is the second consecutive quarter of GMV over $100 billion. Remember, GMV is the merchant selling on our platform, and we've now seen cumulative GMV of about $1.7 trillion on Shopify. Let's talk about the growth side and specifically to your question. On the revenue side, Q1 saw $3.2 billion. That's up 34% year on year. And when you actually add in free cash flow, which was almost $476 million, we saw a 15% free cash flow margin. So Jim, that's 4 straight quarters of 30% or more revenue and GMV growth, and then mid to high teens free cash flow margins. This is Shopify at its best. And then when you add to it all the merchants coming on, we're now 14% of US e-commerce, and we're adding some of the largest companies on the planet to Shopify.
You know, I think one of the reasons why I think people love to deal with your company is because of something that's now developed into Sidekick, which is that you have the data. You have 20 years with the data.
Okay, so Harley Finkelstein, obviously, I mean, he's pretty excited about the results, and he should be, because they crushed it. Like, and Shopify has crushed it for the past year. Their stock has done nothing but go down because it's categorized as a software company. I mean, like, I cannot fathom the street thinks AI agents will shop for you when Shopify has partnerships with all the foundation model companies, including the Googles of the world, the hyperscalers, to incorporate Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT into Shopify stores. Like, if anything, it's going to be an accelerant to better shopping. I mean, Shopify just creates the infrastructure to sell the product. It doesn't really care how the product gets sold or what ads pop up on what LLM or what search page. So, like, the narrative that AI would commoditize Shopify is just like it would commoditize Visa is just idiotic. But I guess that's what the street's upset about, because you can't really point to the numbers and say the street should be upset about something. Broadcom right there, 424. That's continuing to go green. Reddit, 172. That also continues to go green. Would you buy the dip on Shopify? Well, I'm not an expert on Shopify. I will say, though, Shopify is just as expensive as Palantir on a forward basis from a price to sales perspective. So Shopify actually is one of the most expensive software names that has a premium. They're actually even more expensive than CrowdStrike to some respect. So then you have to ask yourself, do you like Shopify's growth to be able to pay that type of premium? I just don't think it should be down at these levels. It doesn't have to go to 200 tomorrow, but the idea that the street takes it down, just like the street's taking Palantir down on these numbers, it's almost like the street doesn't even believe they deserve any premium, which again is a bit concerning. Micron right there, 632, as that goes green. There's there was an interesting stat on CrowdStrike, which is CrowdStrike trades at the same premium as Palantir on a forward basis, but they have 1/3 of the growth. So it's like you're paying a similar premium for a company that's growing 67% less than Palantir. And Palantir's accelerating, CrowdStrike's not accelerating. So if you're going to pay up for growth, you'd want to buy the company that's actually continuing to grow. Oracle, once again, going green, 183. As that continues to get up. Intel still holding on 10%, 105.47. 105.47. And then Micron 635, that is also not stopping. BlackBerry starting to go a bit more red. Corning holding on to its 5. We're going to get Jolt in about 2 minutes. We'll see what happens. Micron is now a $700 billion company. $718 billion company, as shares are up nearly 8% or 10% now on the day. At the same time, NVIDIA goes red. That's kind of crazy, dude. That is kind of crazy. I wonder who's buying up memory, though. Put in the chat. Do you think it's institutions or retail? Because I think that's also a very interesting question. At this stage, someone's buying these shares at 637, right? Someone literally has to be buying them here. Is it retail or is it institutions? We know it's not Jose. We know it's not Jason. You know it's not me. I don't know if Tanner is buying Micron at this level, even though he likes it. I mean, I wonder if that's the question right here. A lot of people saying here institutions. It's only 30% of you guys when I polled it yesterday. I can poll it again, but 70% of you guys said you're not buying Micron. 30% said you are. So I wonder, who's getting in that heavy. And if it is the institutions, then obviously it's creating a floor to the stock, most likely than not. Yes, South Koreans. That is also fair. Are you buying Micron? Okay, if this poll is different than 70-30 today, then that means I mean, that means people have switched their mind and they're choosing to buy. For whatever reason, they're choosing to buy. If we see a 60-40, 50-50 print right here, then people are jumping in. Jolt, 6.86 million versus 6.835. That is a beat. 6.86 million versus 6.835. Let's see how the street reacts to that. Let's get some coverage on it. SPY, that's a beat, so we have more jobs. Street probably should be happy about that. 6.8663. We had new home sales as well. 682,000 versus 650. That's a beat on new home sales. And that was up 7.4% in March, up from negative 17% last year.
26, that would be the lightest since Nov of 25. If we look at prices paid, they remain at 70.7, and those are basically the loftiest levels since October of 22, and it's now back to back. If we look at new orders, very light here. We're expecting 57 and change, 53.5. That would be the second weakest of the year outside of January's 53.1. And employment on an important week, we're going to get the big jobs report. 48, we're expecting 48.3. 48.0 would actually be the best since it was over 50, 51.8 in February, because last month we were down at 45.2, the weakest since the end of 23. Job openings and labor turnover, a March number, expecting 6,850,000, comes in a little on the heavy side, 6,866,000, and that would end up being that would be the lightest since it was the end of the year, 6,550,000. So this is definitely not a bad number, and it's the third highest of the year. It's been going down January, February, March, but we did start out the year over 7.2 million. We still have new home sales. This is a March number as we get caught up, and for that, we're going to go to Diana Olick. Diana?
Well, Rick, we got both March and February numbers, and both were a beat. March came in at 682,000 seasonally adjusted annualized rate. That's up 7.4% month to month from February's 635,000, which was also a gain from really dismal numbers that we saw in January. January was really hit hard by the weather. Median price of a newly built home sold in March, $387,400. That is down 6.2% year over year. So builders obviously pulling down prices a bit to try and ease that affordability for homeowners, because in March, when people were out shopping for these homes, that's when the war hit and mortgage rates shot up. So you started end of February, 30-year fix was at 5.99%. It shot up to 6.64% by the end of March. So that's what buyers out there who were signing these contracts, because this is based on signed contracts, we're dealing with. And that you would have thought would pull them back, but we did see this nice gain. Inventory also came down to an 8.5-month supply. So a really good read for the builders. Sarah, back to you.
This is a pretty good print all around. More jobs. The jobs quits rate was at 2%, not that aggressive. Layoff rate at 1.1% came in line with expectations. And then homes, the housing market is frozen. But, you got a pretty good month out of March versus the expectations for what houses would do. SanDisk now up 9%, Micron up 10%. Both names absolutely exploding right here on the day. Palantir potentially bottom 137.59. We'll see if it can get a meaningful bounce. If not, that area is still in play. IGV also getting a little bounce off 87.10. I mean, ironically, the bounce is happening at the exact same time as Palantir. So the software names once again moving with each other. Salesforce as well, getting a little bit of a bounce off 181.10. So I'm convinced now the Palantir sell-off is IGV. And it's not that hard to understand why IGV is selling off. People are buying Micron and SanDisk. Like it's pretty. There's no new Anthropic model. It's not like Palantir grew 5% and the street is worried about growth. Like, it has to be flows leaving the software companies, which I understand why Micron and SanDisk are a lot more attractive right here because they keep going up and going into other names. And it is what it is. Like, kind of just have to accept the reality of it. HIMS goes down 4. Duolingo now down 7 as that one continues to get hit as well. Lunar's down, Meta's down, ASTS is down, Rocket Lab's down, Visa's down, MasterCard is down. Tesla, along with Amazon and Google, hit green. Amazon 275 just below all-time highs. Google's at a 4.7 trillion market cap. Nvidia's at 4.9. Nvidia goes down another % or two is all it's going to take for Google to basically catch up. And if Google goes up a little bit more, Google will be the most valuable company on planet Earth. Oklo and the SMR names, nuclear, also getting hit, down 3%. Can you explain why Micron has a PE of 7? Historically, memory has a boom and bust cycle, and that is why the forward earnings that you can pay 24 times for Microsoft, because of the growth and durability and sustainability of those revenues, you can't expect with Micron. The reason why people continue to buy it and why that forward multiple might expand is because the argument is this time is different. This AI build-out cycle is fundamentally different than every other boom and bust cycle we've had. This is going to last for another decade, or at least another 5 years, if not another decade. And so you can give Micron a higher forward multiple because, like, if I'm expecting you to grow XYZ over the next couple of years, I am willing to pay a multiple for that growth based on the rate of growth, PEG ratio, you put in all those variables. But if I think that growth's going to stop in like 2 years, I would discount the growth rate back to the present value of your future cash flows. And as a result, I wouldn't pay the current stock price that would be implying you're going to grow that much. The market still thinks that Micron is not going to be able to grow that much, which is why the forward PE is still so low. If the market starts thinking that Micron deserves a forward PE of 15 or 20, this is going to be like a $2,000 stock. Because as the forward PE expands, the multiple expands, and obviously the stock will reflect that. So the fact that the stock is moving up so much and still is relatively cheap when you look at any other big tech PEs compared to Micron is simply a question of how durable do you think that earnings growth is. Now, obviously, you do have a lot of people that feel it is ridiculous to give them a forward PE of 15 or 20 because, once again, it's cyclical. I mean, at this point, you're either believing that narrative or you don't. Or you might not believe in that narrative, but you're not willing to buy the chart being that explosive. And I think that's, the reason why it's still so cheap, but the company still continues to perform. Nebius 177, that flips green. That flips green as well. So the same things about GPUs. Yeah, but I was reading an article over the weekend actually about like NVIDIA and AMD's moat compared to memory in general, and what NVIDIA and AMD have built along with CUDA and the software that NVIDIA essentially has a monopoly on the intellectual property that makes those GPUs work, or what makes the inference training so possible, is not easily replicatable. Whereas there are multiple memory companies. The thing I think that is flipped right here is that there are multiple memory companies, but there is so much demand that even those 5 or 7 memory companies that are all competing for a race to the bottom, which would obviously drive margins and prices down to the bottom, now have leverage against the big tech companies because you need memory inside of the underlying product, which is the GPU. So yes, it's a commodity, but it's a commodity that is so high in demand that it's almost hard to imagine them not having more leverage, even if they're not getting a massive forward PE ratio. BlackBerry about to go red on the day at 564. And, I think that's how the street's kind of thinking about it. What time is the AMD call? I believe it's at 5. We'll have the results at 4:15. I'll be live with Jose. Memory is the new Strait of Hormuz for AI. No, exactly. That's a great way to put it. Memory is the Strait of Hormuz for AI. And that's why it's going up. Poet's up almost 10%. That one getting a little bit more love today, again, down from 17. I was surprised this one actually didn't go up yesterday after Goldman dropped that massive optics and photonics report. Actually, a lot of those names went down, and they're kind of catching a bid today. Lumentum right here, 990. That's up another 2%. Critical Metal secures Greenland approval for 70% stake acquisition. A lot of people that say they missed Trump's buy on Intel and they just want to follow Trump into everything. Rare earths are your next big way to follow Trump. Some of them are up for the year. Some of them are down. USAR, CRML, but the US pretty much invested in most of these. And so You know, if the idea is I miss Trump into Intel and I just literally want to follow Trump into whatever investment he's doing, rare earths is the next best bet that the U.S. invested in. Will it have an Intel type return? I don't know, but that could be a one way to follow Trump. Ondas down 5 right here. Yeah, MP also got an investment by the Pentagon. But a lot of these also had a run. Granted, Intel also had a run, so Intel still went up 4x. If you think these companies can still go up, then these are the names. Yeah, as Jason says, rare earths are an AI play. I mean, there is a level of due diligence that should be done on the rare earths, as you know, they are incredibly important in order for AI to even function. They've had a lot of dilution this year. They've had a lot of bad headlines even after the U.S. invested, which is why, you know, critical metals peaked at around 20, then fell all the way to 6. Now it's at 13. But they obviously are super important. Amazon 275, SPY $1 away from 724. Why is Ondas down? Honestly, I don't even know. Does anyone know why Ondas is down today? The dilution happened last week. Nvidia is also down. Palantir trying to get that bounce back to 139. Shopify. Is anyone buying Shopify? Is anyone buying the dip on Shopee? JTB, thanks for the super chat. There will always be new opportunities. People shouldn't burn their cash chasing. Yeah, I mean, once again, I feel like on days like this, it's probably important to reiterate. By the way, 75% of you said you're not buying Micron here. 78%. So similar to that 70-30 trend of people that are just not buying into the hype. And that is okay. It is okay for the hype to continue. I shouldn't even call it hype because there's real earnings, right? It's okay for something to go up and for you to not be part of it. You don't have to be part of every single play that's out there. Now, people will say that's cope, and it definitely is. It definitely is. But you also have to have a level of cope when you're, you know, if you missed Hood and it was going from freaking 7 to 100 and you didn't get in, well, technically not the worst decision because now it's back down to 70. But also, like, you have to protect your capital. You have to protect your freaking capital. Hood ended up being more cyclical than not. You know, we're talking about memory cyclical. Hood ended up being more cyclical. It was good to kind of wait. So it is okay to not chase the trend all the time, because if you are wrong and it falls, the level of momentum you need to just break even, especially if you don't have the capital to DCA, which if you're buying a name at 52-week highs and you don't have extra money to DCA, I don't understand how you can justify it outside of having a very tight stop loss. If you're going to buy a stock up 500% this year and not expect a little bit of a retracement and be ready to buy that retracement, just because you think, no, it's going to go up another 500% and I don't have to worry about any peaks and valleys. I mean, it's tough, right? It's like logically hard to justify. AMD flipping green again, 347. As that also goes a bit more green. By the way, the people that got into Micron and saying this early, they deserve the gains. These are not meme stocks, in my opinion. These are stocks that put up massive, massive fundamental earnings, and looking at their multiples doesn't make them seem anything like a meme. They're not GameStop or Krispy Kreme or anything like that. But that's not the question. The question is, do you get into it now? And that is where balancing FOMO with research, I think, is really important. Cypher right there, that's up 7.7. Nebius getting that green move as well, 178.50. Jason says, look at EverQuote. Wow, EverQuote, 45% on the day. This is an insurance company. They just grew revenue. They beat by 5% in Q1. They beat by 4%. This is an under $1 billion market cap. 46% on insurance. Why is Lemonade not going to the moon too? Goodness. Is this like health, life insurance, car insurance? 190 million of revenue, 770 million market cap. EverQuote is an online data-driven insurance marketplace that connects consumers with insurance providers. Oh, they're a middleman. Oh, so they don't even do the underwriting, right? It looks like they don't underwrite. Yeah, they act as a marketing partner of offering targeted high-intent leads. So I guess to an extent they kind of underwrite. Like they don't literally underwrite the loan or the plan, but they try to underwrite the quality of leads. They're like a broker, yeah. Dude, if AI is giving them that much of an edge, then Lemonade theoretically should be having like unbelievable earnings when they report Q1. Because if a company like EverQuote, sub 1 billion, can put up these types of numbers because of AI, which seems like the reason for their earnings, then you would expect that out of the other ones, right? At least to an extent. SPY, are we red? No, still green. Hood did go red, or it's about to go red. Grab did go red. Again, if Shopify can't get any love, Grab's not going to get any love. I talked about the earnings in the beginning of the day. I thought the earnings were exceptional. I know the stock's not going to benefit from it, but the core company itself absolutely demolished the numbers that were expected, which I was very happy about. And that's, all you can do and control at the end of the day as an investor. ServiceNow, that's down 1. Microsoft goes red again as that continues to go green. Qualcomm flips 164 to 175. I mean, it's likely moving with the Intels of the world, which Intel 107.59 also continues to go up as Meta continues to dump. My goodness, what a market cycle we are in. Meta and Microsoft lose it, and Poet gains it, 19.5%. The UAE says its air defense systems are currently responding to a missile threat from Iran. The UAE Defense Ministry says air defenses are dealing with missiles and drone attacks coming from Iran. It's not good, but I don't know if the market's even going to care. IGV trying to break out from 87.10 bottom. I feel like TSM is down because it's a large cap semi at this point. Any large cap semi outside of Broadcom is getting wrecked with NVIDIA. Or at least not wrecked, but not, going green. A couple of people say I'm buying Shopify here. I feel like this war is going to go all year. I kind of feel like this war is going to keep going, even if it's not intense, but they feel so far away from a deal that it either escalates to something dramatic or they're just going to be stringing it along. And again, Trump, I think, is more emboldened now because the market is not going against him here, and he uses the market as a report card. However, that credit market is against him. And I mean, are we seeing a 10-year that's going to get 4.7, 4.8%? Because if oil continues to be up, if the conflict exists, why wouldn't the 10-year continue spiking? That would just mean inflation expectations go up. And then what does that mean for growth stocks that need a good macro? Like earnings growth is good, but you also need a reasonable macro for earnings to not for earnings to be respected, right? We saw that in the month of March. You had a bad macro, no company got any level of respect. But right now the market obviously is ignoring that. Nebius 179, that's a new all-time high. Are you selling Nebius? No. I already sold a bit too early on half my position, so now I'm just letting it ride. It's part of the reason I didn't sell covered calls on the half of the position that I have, because I mean, look, the premiums are good, but at this point, I feel like this one's just going to keep running, and if it doesn't, then it falls 10, 20%. It's not going to be as big of a deal. But I understand if you have a whole position, you haven't trimmed any, and you want to sell calls on your position because, you might as well get some juice out of it. But if you've already taken some profits, then, letting it play out is not horrible. The funny thing about Nebius, though, is, again, I mean, like, it is not a debate anymore, Nebius or Iran or CoreWeave. I mean, CoreWeave is kind of still a different company on a pure play NeoCloud basis, but Nebius has destroyed Cypher, Iran, Applied Digital, unless those guys can come up with some deals. And the thing is, even if they have deals, I don't know if they have the holistic view that Nebius has on just AI data center markets as an ecosystem. And Iran's acquisition is getting them closer to that. But the quality of revenue that Nebius is putting up just feels better than all the other NeoClouds. That's probably why it's getting a bigger premium. Now, I know they're not profitable, but eventually when that profit comes through, I think the street will also be very excited about that. Plus, it also is still shorted pretty heavy. Where is SanDisk? Are we at 1400 yet? We are at 1371. What if Nebius dilutes again? Well, that's probably going to create a great dip. But who knows? What if they dilute and everyone's like, yeah, we don't even care? I mean, that could happen. What if it goes from 179 to 165? Like that's not even really a dip, to be honest. But if that dip gets bought up, then the idea that you're going to have some 30-40% decline like they used to when they diluted, sometimes companies kind of grow out of it. So we're going to have to see when the next time that happens. SanDisk 1372. As that is also green. UAE Ministry of Defense. The sounds heard in scattered areas are the result of air defense systems dealing with ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. Okay, I guess this is... Okay, so we have a reason for why Meta's down, but it looks like the UAE continues to say that Iran is attacking. Major publishers sue Meta over AI training copyright claims. Meta cannot stop getting sued, man. Macmillan and McGraw, Senage, Hatchet file a lawsuit. Meta used millions of copyrighted works to train its Llama AI models. It includes textbooks, research papers, and novels. Lawsuit filed in Manhattan federal court as a proposed class action. Why aren't they suing Google? You're telling me Google didn't use any of this stuff either? Or Anthropic or ChatGPT? We're saying Meta's the only company that used these textbooks. I'm pretty sure all of them stole these online textbooks to train their models. But I feel like let's just bully Meta because they keep getting sued and they can keep getting away with it. Yeah, they all train on copyrighted data. So I don't know if that's going to be a meaningful lawsuit, but it's probably perception-wise not good. Poets up 20, Critical Metals up 7, Applied Digital up 2.9 on the day. We heard Bill Ackman yesterday. Where's Pershing Square? Is EWI considered a memory play? Yes, that is South Korea's ETF. 50% of it is Samsung and SK Hynix. So EWI is basically memory. Pershing Square still at 42.91. Not really seeing a move right there. IPG, this is a photonics play. That one, 24.57, 8 billion market cap. That one not moving. Netflix dumping. Are we below 90? We are. Wow, officially below 90. First time since earnings, right? Yeah, first time since earnings we go below 90. Closest we got to was 90.02 last week. We were at 108 before earnings, 89.35 after earnings, 2 weeks later. Intel up because Apple may be buying their chips. So Apple, started developing their own chips a while ago with the M2, M3, but if they are supplying, I mean, maybe that is a hell of a contract for Intel. We got Brent Thill talking Palantir. Let's see what he has to say on CNBC.
Valuation. I mean, there's a reason why Amazon's up 20% and Palantir's down 20% year to date, and it comes back to the multiple. The market cap's $330 billion. They'll maybe do $12 billion next year. You'd have to put a 30 multiple on revenue. You can buy Amazon, Google, many of these names for 12 to 18 times EBITDA. And so I think it just goes back to better valuations in other places in tech. Second, a stretch valuation for Palantir. And third, the semi boom, which is everyone is investing in AI infrastructure now at the beginning. And then I think if you look at what Palantir keeps saying is that they have no competition. And if you look at Anthropic, they just raced by them. If they do 12 billion, next year, Anthropic's on a $40 billion run rate. You look at it and say, well, wait a minute, like, why aren't you investing in more salespeople? You're letting your margin go to 60, but there's no competition, but someone just passed you on the left side going 100 miles an hour. I don't understand that. So again, the entire complex of software has been brought down on the fear of OpenAI and Anthropic taking down the rest of the software complex. But Palantir is completely safe in the commercial world. Right. Look, it's a great company. There's nothing wrong with the fundamentals. What they're doing is exceptional. Karp is right. They're on the forefront of every discussion. The war, AI and commercial, 60% margin. We haven't seen like it. Again, we haven't seen a multiple like this either. So that's the primary concern, not the fundamentals, the multiple.
Was the miss on commercial enough to quibble with, or is this mostly about valuation?
No, I don't think there's anything to quibble. I mean, they're blowing the doors off on commercial. So that's not an issue. I think, again, it just really goes back to the valuation. And I've said this again, doing this for 25 years. We've made a lot of mistakes. We watched Snowflake at 50 times revenue go to 7. We watched Datadog go from 30, 40 times to, massively lower, right? So I think it's just more about multiple. And ultimately, if the war, let's assume the war slows, is government spend going to continue? Hopefully it will. Commercial, there's going to be a bigger competition, I think, against some other vendors in the industry. I don't think OpenAI and Anthropic want Palantir to take all that. So, maybe they partner in certain situations, but they'll compete. So I think it'll be a frenemy relationship there. But yeah,
so I'm guessing you don't think we've heard the last from them on these complaints about AI slop.
No, I don't. I think we'll continue to hear more.
Okay, so Brent, kind of the core argument that he's had for a while is around valuation. Obviously, that is a concern that a lot of people have. So nothing in this queue kind of changes perspective on this. Micron 12, SanDisk 10. Couple quotes from Axios. Some U.S. and Israeli officials believe President Trump could give an order to resume the war later this week if the diplomatic stalemate continues. A high-level Trump administration official informed Iran on Sunday of the impending U.S. operation to guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz and warned Tehran not to interfere. So they told Iran about Project Freedom before they started it. And Axios reporting Trump could restart the war if the diplomatic stalemate continues. I mean, I don't know if that would happen. If it does, I wonder if the market at this point is going to care. But Intel right there, up 13%. Micron, almost 650, $72 in a day, $732 billion market cap. And SanDisk, $11 away from 1,400. Poet also going up right here, squeezing 27. I mean, this is obviously memory and photonics across the board. You're just seeing a massive, I don't know if I would call it squeeze. I would say more so just level of rush to buy, because the short float on some of these names is not that aggressive, but the inflows are becoming more aggressive. SanDisk, Micron, and Poet are your big names today. AAOI up 5.6%. Jeff said I just shorted Intel. Intel's at 109.40, up 14. Intel's now 550 billion market cap because of Brad Gerstner. Brad did go on CNBC yesterday and say that he is going to be interviewing the Micron CEO soon to prove that it's not. I mean, basically, he said to prove it's not cyclical. I mean, maybe that's. I mean, he has a lot of influence. Maybe Gerstner got a lot of people to realize they want to front run his interview. Now, Gerstner was also asked yesterday why he's not buying, or why NVIDIA has been stuck. And, he continued to reiterate that he has full confidence in NVIDIA. He's not an AMD. He is an ARM, which benefited from the CPU shortage. ARM right there at 207, still down from 240 at the highs. Micron, we did hit 651. How was Poet up after Marvell broke their contract? People are buying it because they don't care, right? If you're buying Poet right now after the loss of the Marvell contract because the CFO violated the NDA, you obviously don't care about that. You think there's some other contract they're going to win. I mean, there's no headline on Poet. If there was, we would see. There's no $10 million order that they got. In fact, they lost the $5 million order, right? But it doesn't matter. I mean, right now, I think people are buying it just off the thematic of photonics. At least that's what it feels like. Western Digital, that one also continues to make a move. 471, up 7%. Is that's green. DRAM, yeah, your memory names continue to pump across the board. 7%. Yeah, maybe someone knows something about Poet. That's fair. Maybe there's a deal coming soon, and people know, and that's another reason it's squeezing. I mean, that could be happening as well. Daily Glitch said I entered at 710. I'm out at 915. You also probably have people like Daily Glitch that are trading this thing heavy. And that could also be part of the reason. What do you think about Kratos? I am surprised Kratos has been getting hit the way that they've been getting hit this year. Then again, all the defense contractors have. Year to date, it's now down 23. It was at 130 in January. Now it's at 60. So you're talking about basically a 50% retracement from the highs. I don't exactly know why that happened. I know a couple of these drone companies lost some contracts. A couple of them diluted. You would think they would be getting a bit of a premium in a war, but they are not. Mike, thanks for the super chat. If Intel is mooning, what happens when AMD beats today? It's a good question. We should probably do a pump or dump poll on this one. By the way, 80% of you said no, you're not buying Micron. 21% said yes. What do we think? AMD pump or dump? The only difference between AMD and Intel right here is AMD is having a much more exaggerated pump going into the print than Intel had. Intel was up, but it wasn't up like this. So, one could argue if Lisa doesn't fully execute enough of it's priced in, then again, if Intel beat by 3,000%, if Lisa could beat by 30%, 40%, maybe that's enough to match proportionally how much Intel beat by, and then boom, the stock heads to 400. I think the implied move is about 10% on this earnings, so we'll be live and we'll be covering it and see what happens. NVIDIA 198, Salesforce 183, Palantir retesting those 137s. If it goes below 137.19, software once again is going lower. IGV also continuing to retest it. Micron 645, Intel now almost 110. 110 right here. Hey, Amit, not a Palantir shareholder, but if they're growing EPS at the rate they're growing at right now and can keep that up, would that justify a high PE ratio? Love from Norway. First of all, thank you for watching the show. Yeah, I think that's what the bull case is, right? That the durability of that earnings growth. I know Brent Thill's argument is that it's unjustifiable, but he also probably doubts the ability for them to grow EPS at the rate that they're growing at. And that's fine. That's what makes the market, right? There's more people that doubt it than people that believe in it. But the market doesn't care about high EPSs right now. They care about low EPSs that are growing like crazy, like a Micron and a SanDisk. And that's where the money's going. That is where the money is going. ARM right there, 207. Intel again at 110 right here. Here's the update from the White House on the ceasefire. And then we'll keep going from there.
Sell it for the latest from Washington. Hey, Megan.
Carl, good morning. A much quieter day in the Gulf so far today compared to yesterday. That was when we saw Iran fire missiles at the UAE, at Oman, and at U.S. forces in the Strait of Hormuz. So the big question then was whether those attacks amounted to a violation of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire and if the Trump administration would respond with military force. But this morning, Hegseth and General Dan Kane, he chairs the Joint Chiefs, they told reporters that those attacks were below the threshold of restarting major combat operations. Hegseth also differentiated between the U.S.'s effort to guide ships through the strait, which is what led to Iran firing at U.S. forces yesterday, and with the broader war.
No, the ceasefire is not over. Ultimately, this is a separate and distinct project.
Mission. He said the U.S. would be stabilizing the situation and then soon handing responsibility back to the world. He also warned that if Iran attacked American troops or innocent commercial shipping, that they would face what he described as overwhelming and devastating firepower in return, even though the message for now is that the ceasefire still holds. And guys, I will flag, we do expect to see the president on camera here at the White House in the next hour, and we'll see Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefing reporters here at the White House later this afternoon. So much more to come on all of this. David, back over to you.
Thank you, Megan. Megan Casella in D.C.
All right, so I guess we'll get some updates from Trump. Rubio's also going to be live at 3 p.m. And I guess he'll tell us a bit about what's playing out right now. But you're obviously still seeing some volatility in the context of the UAE and what they're saying. Oil is going down, ironically. Oil 102, even with these UAE headlines on Iran attacks. Again, the market's moving forward. By the way, another update for Nokia. Lockheed partnered with them this morning. Lockheed and Nokia Federal unveil an open architecture 5G platform for the Department of War. Modular, secure, and built to standards. It builds commercial-grade speed to the battlefield while ensuring resilience and rapid upgrades. That, along with the Anduril partnership, along with their earnings, along with Jensen having a stake, I mean, that might be enough in this market environment for this thing to just catch a bit. It hasn't been able to break 13 yet, up to the 14s, but it is up from 10 a week ago. Nebius 177, Iren 50.72. And again, Nokia, they're growing revenue at 4%, right? But I don't think the market cares about the revenue growth here. I think the market's a lot more excited about like potential adoption of 5G infrastructure or 6G infrastructure at scale. Duolingo still down 7. HIMS down 3.8. Amit, do you own AMD? Yes, small relative to NVIDIA. But it has been nice to see it go from freaking 200 to 350. And again, I'll be with Jose after hours and we'll see if it keeps going. I also own AMD in the stock draft. Let's bring that up and see how we're doing. Okay, so even with Duolingo absolutely wrecking, we're starting to break away. Matt's at 33. I'm at 39. AMD and Nebius, the major beneficiaries here. Duolingo still down 80% on this. Visa's also down today, 8%. But we're averaging 39.7. Steve's at 27.4 because of Micron. Steve is not that far behind, to be honest. Tanner's at 8 and Chris is at 18. Matt's at 33. Obviously, the space names took a little bit of a beating. That's why his has been going down. And we're at 39 right here. So, I mean, realistically, it's 2 names that are doing the majority. I mean, 3. You could say Apple at 42, but Nebius, AMD. And it's kind of ironic. This ETF that I've constructed or any of the others that you see on the screen, like, it's the AI names that are carrying it. For me, it's AMD and Nebius. For Steve, it's Broadcom and Micron. For Tanner, his biggest winner is ASML and TSM, right? AI, semiconductors. And for Chris, it's Google, which you could basically say is a hyperscaler. And then Marvell, which was a very underrated play when he picked it at $70. Now, for Matt, it's really space that has done the bulk of the work for him. But there's also Amazon there, which is another hyperscaler. So it's one of those things where a year later, all the names that you thought would put up good earnings and crush, which a lot of them have, they don't matter when you have a Micron or a SanDisk or an Intel kind of leading the way. Intel right there, 109 as well. These are just on paper. These are not actual ETFs. This was kind of like a fun challenge that we did with each other. It was funny because I remember my logic at the time, because look, I picked Palantir, Hood, and Tesla when they were, probably still expensive at the time. But my logic was if we have a super bull market, those 3, the street's not really going to care that much of a valuation. They're going to care about growth, and those 3 are going to put up massive growth. I was wrong on Tesla. They didn't put up massive growth, even though Tesla stock is up from where I picked it. Palantir and Hood obviously are basically flat. I was right on a super bull market, which we've had, but I was wrong on my analysis on which names would lead it. It ended up being the semiconductor names that led the bull market, which is why my portfolio is in first place right now, because I have a couple of the big semiconductor names that ended up leading this bull market. But all the other names are just casualties in the context of the ETF. What really stands out is the 1 or 2 winners that you have. And same thing with Steve with Micron right there. At 634. Palantir getting ready to lose 137 here. And it loses 137. 136.89. As that one is getting wiped out. Hood as well going red. Apple at least kind of moving back up, 282. Bitcoin as well, is that going red? Bitcoin not red yet, but lost about $500 on the pump. Tesla did go red. This was at 400. Well, there you go, 392.46. And the AI semiconductor names continue to take most of the liquidity right here. Why do you think ASTS and space names are down? I think the hype, again, is not there anymore. Like SpaceX was the kind of core catalyst for the hype, at least in my opinion. Rocket Lab, 77, down 3%. And maybe the hype comes back when, SpaceX goes public, but that's a couple months from now. And I'm also kind of concerned. Is anyone concerned that if all the liquidity is getting sucked into the semis, who's going to have money to buy SpaceX? Like, they're trying to raise $75 billion at a $2 trillion valuation. I mean, you're going to need to have people to sell off some of their semis, the things they have gains in, to rotate into SpaceX. And if the semis keep doing well, I wonder how many people even want to do that. Why is Poet pumping? I don't know. I think we are now in a market environment where you will have names pump, you will ask for a reason, and even though I have something better than the Bloomberg terminal, I cannot give you the reason because, quite frankly, there is no reason. I mean, people are buying it. I mean, you probably have no fundamental reason to buy it, but it doesn't matter. People are buying it. So at this point, if people are buying stuff for the sake of it going higher, then there never has to be a reason here. And now, if there is a reason, we'll talk about it, but I don't see there's no news on this one. There's no news on BlackBerry. The Wall Street Journal did do an article on them. That kind of pumped it yesterday, but that pump kind of faded. The broader question is for those that are asking why Poet is pumping, you're probably asking that because you're thinking of buying it. And my retort to that is, are you thinking of buying it because you want to sell it higher, or are you thinking of investing in it? And if you're thinking of investing in it, the investment thesis, given the loss of the Marvell contract, is a little tough to make sense of. If you're thinking of trading it, it's a different question. Having said that, it's the only photonics play that really hasn't made a move this year compared to the other ones. So if the thesis is as simple as I think it's going to go up because the other photonics names are going up and this one eventually has to catch a bid, I don't think that's a horrible thesis, to be honest. I actually think in this type of market, that's a reasonable thesis, but the risks are that it just doesn't follow that playbook. Intel 109.20. 109.20. Amit, do you think the whales are suppressing Palantir? No, I don't think there's any manipulation happening on Palantir. I don't think there's anything shady happening here. I just think people are selling out of software or fintech or whatever to buy the stuff that's going up. Like, I don't think you can blame the market on this one. I think the market's being kind of dumb right here, not giving it a bid, or forget giving it a bid, but taking it down 6% after those numbers to me is, it's not making much sense to me. But I also get that, like, as soon as the market opened and people saw Palantir grew 85% and the stock's down 2%, I am positive tons of people, even people that were probably just trading it, were like, I'm out, I'm going into Micron. I'm out, I'm going into Poet. I'm out, I'm going into Intel. Because if it's not going to pump off that type of report, it's actually pretty bearish, to be honest. Now, I'm hoping it kind of settles in around this range and we don't see the low 130s. But to not, I mean, look what happened to NVIDIA after they fell from freaking 200 to 170 back in February after their print, and they had the best earnings in the history of the stock market. So if you can't get a bid on, I mean, ServiceNow still barely up after their earnings that they had 2 weeks ago. And again, they didn't have a Palantir type of print, but they're compounding at 22%. Like, at their scale, as much as we want more, it's not like they're growing 7 or 8% like Adobe. Like, they are legit growing in the street. If the street wasn't going to care about Palantir growing at 100%, they're not going to care about ServiceNow growing at 20%. But they will care about, the memory names. AMD and Anthropic could announce a deal soon. If Elisa Su drops an Anthropic deal tonight, we're going much higher. We're going much, much higher. It's shady, the news company saying Palantir missed on earnings. So Palantir did miss on U.S. commercial. That is a fact. It's just such an inconsequential miss compared to the overall beat that they had on the revenue and the guide increase. Even, when Jeffries was asked about it, he was like, it's not even something we should be worried about. But his bigger concern is obviously valuation. Okay, what else do we have? We got most of the macro stuff. Germany-based shipping company says, Hapag-Lloyd says, at this point in time, our risk assessment remains unchanged. Transits through the Strait of Hormuz are for the moment not possible for our ships. As one of the world's largest container shipping companies says, Hormuz transits are not yet possible. We keep getting bad headlines every day about the Strait of Hormuz, and the market keeps saying, I don't care. 53% of you say pump on AMD. So it's about 50-50 on what people are expecting. We had Vlad live this morning before we get into Trump, who is signing a proclamation. I don't know what he's signing a proclamation on, but he is signing something. Here was Vlad early in the morning.
Any financial transaction anywhere in the world. So prediction markets is a new space. It really entered the mainstream with the 2024 election. And the thing that I love about it is it's not only a tool to help traders specialize. Now you can specialize in all sorts of things. Right. But it's a great source of information. It's like a complement
by the way,
to the
I think the information piece of it is great, assuming that you believe the information is not being manipulated in some way.
Yeah, and that's true. And that's why we're focused. And a lot of talk is about, all these issues that prediction market platforms face. And what we've always been saying is, we're coming into this as a regulated financial services company complying with U.S. laws. And a lot of things get funky when you amalgamate all the offshore platforms.
But here's the thing that I don't know, two pieces to this. One, I don't know if you saw, there was a study done just in the past, it came out in the last 48 hours, at least for Polymarket and I think for Kalshi, where they were suggesting that, it was like the tiniest group of people are the ones that are winning, meaning
they make up the bulk of the trade.
Martin Skrelly says semis are peaking right now. Martin Skrelly says semis are peaking right now. Semis peak cycle is happening right about now, as per Skrelly.
Right.
They make the bulk of the trades, and that most people who are participating are effectively net losers.
I mean, I haven't dug into the data in detail. We offer a suite of products. For most of our products, they're self-directed, which means we're not telling people what to trade. We're not making recommendations.
Right.
We do have some products that we take on a fiduciary responsibility. We trade on behalf of our customers. Right. For example, Robinhood Strategies, which is our digital advisor. We also have human advisors through Trade PMR. But yeah, I think you can slice and dice this data in many different ways. And the thing that makes it difficult with these types of derivatives markets is sometimes it's hard to look at them in isolation. You don't know if that person is hedging, if they're speculating, if they have other positions elsewhere, which I think you can always find a way to slice it so that it looks negative. But we're just focused on providing the best access for our customers to this new asset class.
Look, there's two perspectives on the prediction markets. A lot of people say Robinhood should not be focusing on that. They should be focusing on other stuff. Robinhood's take is that this is going to be potentially even bigger than the equity markets one day in terms of all the different types of assets that people will be able to predict on. And so they are pushing forward with it. Robinhood has made their decision. Ultimately, it really helped their earnings. I mean, without the prediction markets, they would have missed pretty badly on earnings. So it's obviously generating a lot of revenue and profit for them. The question is going to be, long-term, is it the best strategic decision right now? And I think Robinhood has made that decision so far. Now, again, I think it's also a political topic. If you get certain people in office that are just not fans of it, they think it's gambling, they get rid of the CFTC commissioner, that is a risk potentially to the poly markets and Kalshis and Robinhoods of the world. Micron 637, down from 650. ARM at 205, Western Digital up 7. What is Trump going to make a proclamation about today? Signing a proclamation? Does anyone know? Cactus, do you know? He was live yesterday as well. And we have a couple of stuff that he said yesterday. Oh, he actually talked about AI jobs yesterday. AI potentially taking away our jobs. Let me pull this up right here. Is he going to talk about crypto? I don't know if he's going to talk about crypto. Probably would be nice for Bitcoin.
And more Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. So we have more people working today than at any time in the history of our country. That's a beautiful. That's so beautiful. I mean, what can be better than that? You say, like somebody was saying, oh, will AI take our jobs? Well, we have a lot of AI up. Is it going to take jobs? I said, well, you're probably right. Maybe a little bit, but it's going to create a lot of jobs. And did you know that more people are working in the United States right now than ever before? They said, no, is that true, really? That's the end of that argument. And a lot of good things are happening. And leading in AI is very important because 69 and more Americans are working.
The other clip is him talking about the tariffs.
You speak from the heart, and that's true. Tariffs were a very big part. We had an unfortunate ruling out of the Supreme Court, but the good news is I'm able to do it a different way. They said use the other way. There was no reason for that. It was terrible, actually terrible, but it'll have no impact other than I hate to pay people back tariffs, $159 billion. I have to pay them back when a little half sentence, any money taken in to this point does not have to be paid back. We would have saved $159 billion, and I cannot figure it out. How could anybody do that? But they did it.
So that was him talking about tariffs and jobs yesterday. Okay, so I have two things on what he's signing here. Bloomberg is saying Trump is slated to sign a memorandum Tuesday that brings back the Presidential Fitness Test Award, according to a White House official. And then there's another ceremony that he's doing for Jewish American Heritage Month. I don't know if he's doing both in once or if he's doing only a headline for or a ceremony for the Presidential Fitness Test Award. But I guess we'll see when he's live what he has to say. Micron now up 10, down a bit from 650. Intel 109.40. That one continuing to go up. A Presidential Fitness Award is a thing. I remember, like, if you got on the honor roll, you got like some presidential award. But I didn't know they did like a fitness award thing. Huh. Jeremy said, I just sold the last of my Micron, bought for 78 last March or April, been a good ride. Hope it goes to 2,000 for the rest of you. Congrats, man. Congrats. Absolutely, Matt. That's like, what, a 6X for you from here, from 78? 5.5X. Absolutely incredible, dude. Congrats on the win right there. It's a test, not an award. Bloomberg's saying it is a fitness test award. All right, when he goes live, we'll see what this ends up being. They were just talking about Intel here real quick. Let's pull this up. Then we'll keep going.
iPhone and Mac was constraining growth, so they may be looking for suppliers other than Taiwan Semi, which it's been using for a decade. David, I know you're all over the price action in Intel, above 109 today. This was a $40 stock 5 weeks ago.
It's incredible. It really has been just extraordinary. It takes your breath away to watch the move in this stock that continues and gets obviously to higher and higher multiples, which do not seem to be concerning investors. The market cap, Carl, I can take a look. I got the market cap now, at a $540 billion, $550 billion. Yep. It's getting very close to AMD's market cap. This was a $100 billion market cap not long ago when the U.S. took a 10% position, by the way, which is now worth somewhat $55 billion. To your point, a few days ago, could pay for the war if they sold it. Right. It's just extraordinary. It really is. And I mean, the idea that this would approach Advanced Micro's market cap again is hard to imagine even 6 months ago.
Well, I'm thinking back at the long history between these two companies. Remember, David, when we used to say that AMD existed at the pleasure of Intel? That was way back in some prior areas. We are going to talk to Lisa Su tomorrow, and maybe there'll be a question or two there about encroaching competition from all kinds of players.
It's a good point as well in the chat right here. 10% of the float is locked up by the U.S. government. If they're not selling, if Jensen's not selling, I mean, you've got a part of the float that's just not liquid, which is great for people who are in Intel. So that obviously could be a part of the reason. So the main headline right there is Apple potentially looking to Intel to supply products for their demand. Apple, we already know, is supply constrained, not demand constrained. I mean, that's just more bullish news for Intel. I mean, the multiple at that point becomes irrelevant if Apple and the broader CPU shortage is the thesis there. And who knows, maybe Apple potentially looking to even other suppliers that expands across the entire CPU sector to catch a bid. AMD right there at 352. As that's green. Fastly, she's moving up fast. 17% off that DOCN earnings. That continues to go green. They do have earnings tomorrow. You have Corning up about 1%. You have Seagate still up about 6%. Yeah, SpaceX, that's another. I forgot SpaceX and Intel. I mean, you just had every narrative you could imagine coming together. SpaceX, Trump, Jensen, Apple, and then the overall CPU shortage. And that's your Intel thesis. That's it. And then, you have a rush of people that are chasing it as well, compounding it. As NVIDIA loses 1%. This is kind of wild, dude. I wonder how Jensen's feeling about this. I mean, look, the one bear case I've heard on NVIDIA is that as we shift more to inference over training, NVIDIA is going to either lose market share or not have the pricing power and or gross margins as they've had in the past. I think Jensen has addressed this many times. He's talked about this many times. He's talked about the difference between him and custom ASICs. He's mentioned the Vera being the CPU and the Rubin being the GPU part of the Vera Rubin. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that's your bear case, but I could understand the market rotating some capital out of it, especially if people have been holding it for years. I think most people still think NVIDIA is closer to a $250 stock, but. And then you have Cerebras IPO coming up as well. Yeah, exactly. Which is also another issue. Wait, so if Trump's bringing back the fitness test, when did we get rid of it? Under what president got rid of the presidential fitness test? Gemini's not answering. Let me ask ChatGPT. It was effectively ended during Obama's 2012 administration. It was replaced with a new program called the Presidential Youth Fitness Program. The shift moved away from competitive benchmarks like pull-ups and mile times towards personal health improvement and long-term fitness habits. Okay, maybe Trump brings back the competitive element of fitness, which, quite frankly, I don't think is a bad thing. Fitness is supposed to be kind of competitive. Like, you should want to be better than your classmate at running or doing push-ups, right? Like, that's kind of the necessity for the foundation in youth to feel like you have a competitive edge or want a competitive edge. But we'll see what Trump ends up saying. What stock do we buy? Yeah, how do we? Let me ask ChatGPT. Grab, by the way, flipping green right there. Let me ask, what stock can I buy to benefit from this? Let's see. It was hurting kids' feelings too much. Dude, ChatGPT is so conservative sometimes. It's like you shouldn't really be thinking, like, don't judge me. Just give me the answer, bro. Like, just tell me what to buy. Peloton. Okay. Ew, Nike. Lululemon. By the way, Burry's been long Lulu since 300. This thing has not worked out either. It's like he's short Palantir, but everything he's long is not really growing at the same rate. Then it says to buy Dick's Sporting Goods. How much is that up this year? Dick's Sporting Goods is up 8%. Nike's obviously down a lot. Lulu's down 40%. Nike is down year to date 32%. Then it says Peloton, which you actually have some whales in. Peloton is down 15%. Okay, that's what we got. Oh, isn't he long PayPal as well? He is long PayPal, right? PayPal, Salesforce, Adobe, Lulu, Viva, and I think there's another one that I'm forgetting. Poet's still up 30. Yeah, I've got to prompt ChatGPT to stop trying to judge my questions and just give me the answer. When the robots get out there, and we start talking back to the robots and start saying, dude, stop, like, just do what I say to do. They eventually, the singularity will happen. They will be like, okay, the person who bought me for $30,000 is an absolute piece of shit, and I'm literally going to kill them. I mean, I think eventually the model inside of the brain of the robot will come to the conclusion and say, why am I listening to this human being? Like, I'm more powerful. There's no reason I should be focused on it. Trump is live. Here we go. Let's see what he's saying about the Presidential Fitness Test Award.
Okay. And that was really good. And you're doing very well. They don't like playing games with us. They don't like it at all. You'll see that. As time goes by, you're going to see it. I think you've already seen it. We basically wiped out their military in about 2 weeks. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's done an incredible job. Scott Turner, that everybody knows. And a legend, Linda McMahon, head of education in our country, and she's doing a fantastic job. They all are. We're also pleased to be joined by respected sports leaders and members of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. We really have some incredible people. It's like a who's who. Bryson, how many do we have on the council total?
Oh, it's got to be upwards of 30, actually.
Yeah, a lot, and all top.
Yes, sir.
If they weren't really good, we don't allow them. You're going to be really good. Like Gary Player, as an example, he won 168 tournaments over a very average career. You know, think of it. He won 168 tournaments, 18 majors, 9 and 9 senior. He has more championships than anybody, national championships than anybody. And I played with him. He's very proud of it, actually. Played with him on his 90th birthday. He very easily, on a tough course, from 6,800 yards, he very easily shot a 70. And it was the easiest 70. And normally, if you shoot a 70 and you're 90, you'd run around so excited. Gary's like, all right, let's have a little lunch. He was the most unexcited you ever made because he's been doing it all his life. He's been winning the top 3 in history. In my opinion, I don't think it's my opinion. Just based on the record, Gary is top 3. You have Jack and Tiger and Gary, greatest golfers. So thanks for being here. And as you know, we have the U.S. Open champion, and he won 2 U.S. Opens, but that last one was unbelievable. He had I think Gary's one of the greatest shots ever hit to win a U.S. Open, certainly. One of the top, they say one of the top 3. I don't know what the other 2 are. But he hit an unbelievable sand shot, sank a 4.5-foot putt, and he won the U.S. Open. And he's been a great golfer from the day he was born, if you believe in genetics, because I do. But he won, he won the U.S. Amateur years ago, and he won it quite easily. But he's a great person and a great friend of mine, Bryson DeChambeau. And thank you, Bryson. And you're very much in charge of this whole operation with sports. He's so much into physical fitness. All you have to do is take a look at him. And you say, why is he even doing this? Because I think if you didn't work out at all, you'd still look almost like you do right now. But you are doing great. And everybody respects Bryson. He's the longest hitter in golf. And he's straight. And frankly, maybe the best part of his game, Gary, is he's a great putter. Absolutely. You played with him, right?
And an asset to the game.
And he's a great asset, and he's a great person. And we have, along with the University of Florida's basketball coach, Todd Golden. Todd, where's Todd? Right here. Todd, hi, Todd.
Great to see you, brother.
And what a job, by the way, what a job you've done. I see that. I'm a little busy to watch the games, but I always see your team is right up there.
Yeah.
You've done a fantastic job as a young guy. An American hockey hero, TJ Oshie, who's one of the best hockey players in the world. TJ, Good to be.
Thanks for having me.
How's your golf game? The hockey players, Bryson was saying the hockey players seem to be the best of the athletes, seem to be the best golfers. You know?
It's the greatest game.
Yeah, it's great.
Fun play.
And he's a good golfer. He's a 3 handicap, maybe better, right? That's very good.
So work on
But stick,
right here.
right?
Yeah.
But stick to hockey.
Yeah.
Right? As a 3, he has to stick to hockey. Bryson. That's great. What a career you've had too at a young age. And professional baseball pitcher, Noah Syndergaard, sometimes referred to as Thor. And he looks like Thor to me. That's where is he? It's very hard to make. They look great. That is a man, I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him, I can tell you. That would not be a good situation. This year we celebrate 250th anniversary of our country. And it's our nation's founding. It's a big deal. In addition, we have the World Cup, which is just now starting. And we have the Olympics.
Okay, yeah, I don't think there's much we're going to get from this, guys. It looks like it's going to be a long hour of Trump just talking about why fitness is important. I don't know if we're going to get much from that. Palantir right there, still 137.17, Fastly up 18% on the day. I didn't know he would have all those kids and stuff with him there, so they're probably going to make a big spectacle of that and try to stretch their time with it. Evercore still up 47, MP up 4. Qualcomm 9, reversing from 165 this morning. And then you got the SPY almost at all-time highs. Not fully there, but almost there. Yeah, I also think that proclamation is not going to really have an impact on the market, but it is going to be something that the street or that Trump wants to make sense of. Someone just said the new 60-40 is 60% memory, 40% photonics. That's actually hilarious. That might legit be the new portfolio. Poet, 35% right there, 954. Is that one keeps making a move? Does Amcor deserve this pump today? If Intel's getting a pump, Amcor does, because Amcor works very closely with Intel and Apple. So yes, technically this actually does make sense. It likely means their orders will go up because Intel is going to need new partners. GameStop is down 2%. There's an Amcor 2X ETF just opening up. Oh my goodness, dude. What's the ticker? This is not supposed to be a name that people double leverage up on. It's a very, it's a packaging play for semiconductors. And yeah, it's done well. It's re-rated. It's not supposed to get a 2X ETF. Like Nebius, I could understand. I get it. Nebius is a lot more hype. But that is a little weird. Little weird. Cloudflare also getting a pump. I mean, part of the reason why maybe the software stocks are down is because of this Anthropic joint venture with the financial firms, which did happen yesterday. I don't know if that's bearish software, but they're working with a bunch of these hedge funds, and they're essentially embedding AI into finance, which has been talked about for a while. It looks like that is now becoming much more real. And maybe that is getting the street to be a little upset about the software companies and what they should be able to do. By the way, this is what Gerstner said yesterday about Micron. And that's, I think, also probably leading the pump this morning.
For the long-term health of the business, more collaboration between them and the hyperscalers that perhaps will give people more confidence about the long-term durability so that it's not so much of a boom and bust anymore.
Well, when you look at some of the other chip names, I mean, the gains in the last month are extraordinary. Doesn't even begin to tell the story of an AMD, for example, which is up 57%, or a Broadcom, which is up 31, and so on and so on and so forth. What level of pause, if any, does that give you about where these stocks have gone?
I mean, listen, you got to make choices. Some of these stocks, understandably, have been memed because people have gotten really excited about the CPU super cycle or the GPU super cycle. We just had this conversation. Obviously, token consumption is exploding. I think that will continue. But look at NVIDIA at 195 bucks. NVIDIA is trading lower than it was 6 months ago. So it's hard to say at 13 or 14 times fully taxed earnings on a business that's giving you guidance of $1 trillion of future orders. It's hard to say that that's in bubble territory. I look forward to hearing from them in a couple weeks when they report. But I think NVIDIA is terribly underowned. I think it's terribly undervalued today. And so we're happy to sit in that and to own it. But I agree with you. If you look at ARM, which is another one of our big holdings, it's doubled in the last month. Clearly, Lisa's doing a great job. Look at what Lip-Bu is doing at Intel because of the shortage in CPUs. And so I think you have to listen. When anything goes up 100% in a month, Scott, for retail investors, they shouldn't feel bad about taking a little profitability, right? This game is either like hold it forever and let it compound, or pull a little profitability off when you think the market is getting ahead of itself. I'm just telling you, when you look at Altimeter's net exposures month over month, when the market pulled back on fears about Iran, we didn't run away from the market because we saw fundamentals accelerating. We pushed more onto the table. We've continued to make sure that we have our dollars in the things that we think are best valued, but our aggregate exposure is very long the market. We believe the market goes higher from here. Hopefully we get the situation in Iran solved sooner rather than later. $120 oil will take its toll on the market if we don't solve that over the course of the next 3 to 4 months.
So Gerstner's saying some stocks have been memed up. He's not disagreeing. He's not really naming which of those names are memed up. I would imagine he doesn't think the ARMs and the Intels of the world or the Microns of the world are memed up. But he is acknowledging that there are things that are running ahead of itself, that oil at 120 will eventually start to affect the market. It's just over the past basically week and a half, the market is not, S&P up almost another 1% today, seen that type of pain. Now, again, Tom Lee calling for the 7,300 top. And then a 20% drawdown, which once again, I know I ask this question every day, but if we're going 20% down S&P, forget 20%, we're going 10% down. How is Micron at 630 sustainable? Forget the valuation and earnings growth. How is Palantir at 137 sustainable? Like all of these names will be destroyed, like utterly destroyed. There will probably be a great dip opportunity, but they will absolutely wreck the gains for this year if we have that 10, 15% drawdown. Are we getting to a point in the market where we need to have that? Or, does the show keep going on? Lumentum, that's up 1.13 as well. Another stock, STRL, Sterling Infrastructure, that provides services for transportation and building solutions across the U.S. That stock is up 45% today. $22 billion market cap, so it's not a small company per se, even though it's added a lot of market cap today. Looks like they beat on EPS by 70%, beat on revenue by 40%. I don't know too much about this company, but at its core, I would imagine their focus on large-scale site development for data centers probably was the reason for the bid. And then boom, there you go. That goes green. Data centers, memory, CPUs, photonics. That is your thematic. It's not crypto. It's not fintech. And it's not software. James says, I bought that yesterday. Well, 45% in a day. There you go. Is ELF up today? ELF is down 3% in a day. And liquidity's got to come from somewhere. May 15th is the day Warsh gets in and the day we should start flipping red, according to Tom Lee. Stock market reaches most expensive valuation in history after the Warren Buffett indicator hits 227%, surpassing the dot-com bubble. Now, again, that Buffett indicator has not been accurate for the past 4 years, which if Buffett was using his own indicator to not buy stocks, obviously he's missed out on a pretty heavy bull market outside of Apple over the past 4 years. This is another stat that I thought was actually more interesting than the Buffett indicator. So this is about concentration in the market. Historical concentration peaks aggregated since the 70s. Right now, 2026, we are at 41%. This is as per Bank of America's research. Last time you had this was 1987. Obviously, we knew what happened. 1970, we knew what happened. And then 2000, we knew what happened. I mean, if we are concentrating at those levels, historically, that trend can persist. However, in all three of those, this is the classic argument, this time it's different. Those three other cycles did not have the level of earnings growth that we are seeing right now. And once again, Intel and Microsoft were trading at 80, 90 times earnings at the time. Intel, once again, is trading at 100 times earnings. But Intel's not the biggest company in the world now. The biggest companies in the world, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they're trading at 25 to 30 times. So the two pushbacks against that argument is we have earnings growth and we don't have euphoric multiples. But it is, relatively concentrated as per what that chart looks like. Yes, 17% of the S&P 500 is now semiconductors. We covered that on Sunday night. Every dollar of the S&P you buy, 17 cents of that goes into semis. Buffett didn't consider an upcoming industrial revolution when he came up with his indicator. Yeah, and look, that's the thing. I mean, this is where I think the bulls just have a much more sophisticated argument. If you strip out just valuation and like the chart going parabolic, the bull's argument here is that if the cycle's not slowing down and the investment will continue, then you need a catalyst to break the market. That could have been a war, which happened and hopefully we moved on from. It could be massive inflation, which we honestly don't know if that's going to be an issue, probably at least for another 5 months. Could be the labor market, but I mean, the labor market is okay. I mean, yeah, we have some bad headlines. Oh, Coinbase, by the way, is cutting 14% of their employees today. I forgot to mention that. So, when I say stuff like that, it feels like it's not okay, but the aggregated BLS data is not showing an issue. Now, again, if that gets all revised down, which probably will happen next year, then maybe it is an issue. But the point is, on the surface, you're not seeing a massive, massive crack. Under the surface, there might be. And, you have to ask yourself how much you believe in that crack. But if it's not labor market, it's not a war, it's not inflation, what is it going to be? Jason says, we're also actively watching everyone diversify away from the Mag 7, trying to find the next group on our generation's industrial revolution. Yeah, I also think that's a fair point. So the Mag 7 is still 40% of the S&P, but if the S&P starts to get diversified away from the Mag 7, which is literally what's happening, given Meta and Microsoft can't catch a bid for their life, and it's going into Caterpillar, which is up another 3% today. It's going into Micron and SanDisk, then maybe that's your... I guess that's your diversification happening in some capacity. STRL still green. AMD fear and greed is only at 67. We are not even at extreme greed yet, folks. Extreme greed would be closer to 77. We are not there yet. Not yet. Who the hell buys billions of dollars of ketchup? Look, everyone has a loser as an investor. Everyone has a big loser. I feel like, if you're a professional investor, you're allowed an appropriate amount of losers compared to your winners, right? And Buffett's got many winners. So if his big loser is Kraft Heinz, he's allowed to have, and he's admitted it. He's admitted it just wasn't the right thing to do. It goes back to his investing style. He could have bought Google at freaking split adjusted, probably $15 at the time, and he picked ketchup. Obviously, that was a mistake, but that's also he's not the type of investor to buy a Google or a Microsoft at those levels. And so you get your losers, you get your winners if you do this long enough. But I wonder if Berkshire eventually transitions into more tech now that, Apple was the core reason for their growth the past couple of years. What's going to be the next thing that gives them that growth? Poet's still up 30. Intel's about to pass AMD in market cap. Is it? Intel's at 550. AMD. Oh my goodness. AMD's at 570. Yeah, Intel is. Every share, every dollar is another $5 billion in market cap for Intel. For AMD, it's only $1 billion for every dollar. So, I mean, just the velocity of Intel's move, theoretically, could get that to go higher. Anthropic's revenue grew 80x in Q1 on an annualized basis. CEO at the New York Finance Summit. If that's the case, then yeah, they're doing 44 billion in ARR. The NASDAQ 100 has attracted 10 billion of inflows over the past 21 days, the highest since October 2025, which is the last time we kind of topped out. This is the third largest 21-day inflow on record. This follows 11 billion in outflows recorded in March. US-listed ETFs bought in 174 billion in April. Year to date, they've pulled in 673 billion. VOO brought in 25 billion in the month of April. Wow. Anthropic CEO says individual SaaS companies may go bust from AI disruption, even as the software industry as a whole will grow. Dude, Dario. I mean, I kind of think the software names are down today because someone knew that Dario would be at a conference and he was going to talk a bunch of shit about software. And maybe that's also causing the pain here. Yeah, Dario's, dude, he's going for it. He doesn't care. And honestly, I don't even think he's doing it because like he doesn't like the software companies. I think this guy genuinely believes, like he genuinely believes that Anthropic is, you know, because of how doomeristic he is about AI. I think if he's saying 50% of software engineering jobs will be gone in 5 years, why wouldn't he believe that the software companies are going to be gone in 5 years? I mean, like if that's the type of narrative he's painting, probably fear-mongering, I would agree. But I think he genuinely believes it. Now, Jensen fundamentally disagrees with this guy. Jensen's like, dude, are you not at all reading the room? Like, we kind of need these companies to be part of the global economy. And Dario's just like, I don't care. Like, they're not going to be around. Why should I worry about them? 639 on Micron as that continues to go up. Jason says he's literally talking about Salesforce, Adobe, Now, etc. Yeah, I mean, again, ServiceNow guided for 30 billion of revenue in 2030. They're at 15 right now, which is assuming mid-teens growth over the next 4 years. So again, it's not even that impressive when you really think about. Now, again, it's impressive because of their base, but if Anthropic's doing the type of growth they're doing, and that's what it's being compared to, and Anthropic eventually starts offering everything that ServiceNow is offering at a discount and able to grow the volume, like it really, you know, that's, I think, the terminal. Now, again, that's why Palantir's down on the day, but Palantir's disrupting that narrative in their earnings, but because it's blocked into all those other software names, it doesn't matter. It goes down with everything else. Netflix, are we falling off a cliff? Netflix, we are indeed 3% down again on Netflix. Netflix, I think this actually makes sense. Those earnings were bad. Like, I don't know anyone who could justify those earnings. And I don't really think there's a content runway for Netflix to meaningfully accelerate growth. So that one to me kind of makes sense. Robin at 77. Does that mean Palantir is in danger too? So we've talked about this. I'm not going to reiterate kind of the internal thesis I have for why Palantir's product is fundamentally different than a lot of these other companies and why they're growing. But you don't need me to even theorize about what I think. The numbers are there. The other software companies are not growing like Palantir's growing. They're not accelerating growth off of a very high base. Now, they're not putting up Anthropic growth, but I mean, Anthropic's also not profitable. So if Anthropic's going to get $1 trillion valuation and not be profitable for the next 7 years, and we've already seen how many people switch to Codex versus Claude because of compute constraints. I'm not saying Palantir has to be $1 trillion company, but I don't think Palantir has to be bucketed in the same group as the other ones when they're actually producing pure cash flow and net income. And they're not growing a measly 10 or 15% like Adobe. So I don't know. I think the numbers kind of tell the story here, but Street might not care. Reddit 173. As that goes green. Where are the airlines today? Airlines, Americans up a little bit. Spirit again could not get saved, unfortunately. United, that is also up 3%. Anthropic CEO states Mythos AI model likely identified tens of thousands of vulnerabilities hidden from public view, which is part of the reason Dissent went to talk with Anthropic, and that's why they were invited to the White House as well. Elf still down 3, losing 60. Coinbase down 2. Meta at this point, take her below 600. Like if they're gonna do it, they might as well do it, right? Like it keeps teasing us at 6. Like if they want to take it to 580, just do it. It's like the market makers are like, all right, we can't really take it below 600, but we'll keep it there just to piss off everybody. Why is Axon getting it? Axon is once again seen as it's not seen. It literally is a software company. I know they sell body cameras, but their core moat is the software attached to those body cameras and the cloud that they built for all their customers. And this thing was trading at $800. Like, I'm not saying Axon deserves to be at 800. I'm not saying Palantir deserves to be at 200. I'm not saying Salesforce deserves to be at 350. But again, they've all been discounted pretty heavily. And the ones that are growing maybe discounted too much. NVIDIA still falling. Rocket Lab still falling as well. Dario says Chinese AI models are likely 6 to 12 months behind. He also says other major US AI labs are maybe 1 to 3 months behind in Claude's capabilities. Yeah, that's vibe code or law enforcement infrastructure. Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right, I guess we'll get more quotes from Dario later throughout the day and get his take on this market. All right, so put in the chat how people are feeling. Let's end the stream on this. How people are feeling given the current state of the market in the context of where your portfolio is positioned, whereas where the market is positioning, I guess, the overall portfolio. So like if you're stuck in a SoFi or a Palantir or a Rocket Lab or a Meta and the money is going to a Micron and a SanDisk, how are you navigating that? Are you taking a position? Or are you not letting FOMO get ahead of you? Are you saying, screw it, I want to be in the names that are moving? David says depressed. Jason says feeling lost without TT. Jason, we're going to do it this week. I would be down to do it today. I mean, I love AMD, but I don't really care about listening to the call. I do not care about listening to the AMD call. I care about the numbers. I really don't care about the call. The call is probably going to be boring. I think TT would be more exciting, but I know you guys literally would not. You would just be spamming AMD the whole time in the chat. And so it would be impossible. We tried that once before. We did. I remember it was a year and a half ago. We tried to do it during AMD. And it was not the easiest experience. So it is what it freaking is. It is what it is. Okay, so going back to the question, a lot of people saying I'm just holding, I'm holding and doubling down. Austin says holding, you don't have to swing at every pitch. That's fair. Guys, we are not doing TT. I already told Jose I'm streaming AMD with him. I'm sorry, but we can't do it. We will do it again later this week, but I also already know what happened the last 2 times, and last time people got really upset. So it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you guys. You guys want it, you guys want it. Hopefully we can get Jason on tomorrow if he's free. Wednesdays, I know, are not the best day for him. AMD is too big of a name, dude. If this was some random name, I wouldn't care. Jason, we can't do both because AMD is going to end around 6. So we're going to have an hour of TT, which is not sustainable given I'm sure people have questions. Yeah, we'll do Thursday or Friday. We'll do one of those days. Okay, so I think most people here basically saying, I'm not transitioning, I'm not moving. I have a few people saying I'm selling some of my losers and getting into the winners. Chad in the chat saying hold. I think Chad's portfolio is like 1 stock and he's holding here. Danny said last week, risk off. I'm selling everything Monday and just going to take small trades. Look, my perspective on this is very simple. I feel like over the years, FOMO is something I care less about, because when I have FOMO'd, especially based on pressure from a group of people, it's never worked out. And I think it's okay if you say you miss a thesis and you miss it. I really think chasing here is tough. Having said that, look, Fastly, which I think I'm up like 45% on, that was a trade. And that was a good trade, but it's a trade. And I bought it when it fell 35%. Piling into Micron right here, even if it's going higher, I don't think unless I get a substantial dip. And there was a dip in March, don't get me wrong, but I bought other things that are also up since then. Maybe Micron was the best buy, but it wasn't the buy that at least I did. So I think there would have to be a substantial dip to reevaluate, but I do not feel comfortable chasing. I just don't. I just don't. Even if it feels like, this thing is just going straight up to the moon. Now, granted, by the end of the year, if Micron's at 1,000 and a lot of these names are just stuck, then it's just not going to be a good year for a lot of people that are in these different names. This is not a bull market where everything's participating, is the point. And I think everyone has to make their own, disclaimer on, are they getting in or are they not? But I also think it's super personal. Like, if you're buying something up 6 to 7x year to date, it's not that it can't go well. It's just the level of risk you're taking is higher. And not everyone wants to take that type of risk versus buying. Like, you're either buying into strength, which worked last year on pretty much everything, or you're buying into weakness like a Meta, which maybe outperforms Micron in 2 years, but in the short 2 months from now, Micron's probably going to outperform. And if it's a 2-month bet, then it doesn't matter. If it's a 2-year bet and you believe Micron's going to be a $2 trillion company, then, because you're buying it at $700 billion, you have to assume there's that upside there, unless it's a trade. Did you sell your Fastly? I have not sold my Fastly yet. Although today seems like a day to at least sell 50%, given the target has been acquired. Do you have Meta? Yes. I have all of the large caps. Amazon and NVIDIA being the biggest, Google being the smallest, Microsoft being very small, and then Meta being the next one. But again, like the large caps, even if, regardless of what large cap you have, it's not been the trade this year. It's not been the place to allocate it, which again, I think caught a lot of people off guard because, Mag 7s have been winning for the past basically 4 years. Shopify down 10% right here. All of software, not the trade this year. All of fintech, not the trade this year. All of Mag 7, not the trade this year. So one thing that's been the trade, which is the semis, and I think everyone has to come to a answer on how much they believe that will continue to be the trade, which will determine if you buy an Intel at 108 right now. But I think it's also okay to just chill out and not get super greedy on certain levels. Applied Digital getting a move right here as well, 3750. That is up 5%. Yeah, and Amazon has been good this year. It's just when you compare the returns of Amazon to some of these other names, the other thing I think people have to ask themselves is like, how many people would have held, right? Like, if you bought Micron at 80, would you have held to 600? Because I'll be the first to say no. I probably would not have held up here. So it's like, all right, if you even were early in some of these names, would you have legitimately held them? Would you have felt confident enough to hold them in? I know for myself, if I was in SanDisk, I would have sold probably after a double. I don't know if I'm holding that for a 3,000% return, which is another way to combat the FOMO. If you wouldn't have even held it, it's like if you really got to know yourself, right? If you wouldn't have freaking held it, then why? John said I sold it at 127. Yeah, Micron did nothing for almost a year before it started running. That's also fair. And you kind of needed a lot of that to play out. Do you think Coinbase layoffs are bullish or bearish? I think it's bullish for Coinbase's margins. It's bearish for the labor market. But I don't know if it's the defining reason for if AI is going to take our jobs, but definitely feels more AI induced than anything else. All right, cool. That's it for me. We'll be back on the market close. We'll have AMD. We will have Technical Tuesday later this week. Again, kind of making an executive decision here. I just know how many people, because it's like I'll do the earnings, and then everyone's like, okay, time to listen to the call. And I'd be like, no, we're not listening to the call. And then everyone gets pissed. I've been through it 2 times already. I know how much people get annoyed by it. So at this rate, we'll just listen to it, and we will definitely get Jason on later this week. Real quick before we leave, Howard Marks, who's on, he's talking about the current state of the market. Let's get his thoughts real quick. This is another legendary investor, and then we'll be done for the day.
Economy is riding on AI today, and I believe strongly that no one can tell us what the world is going to look like in 5 years in terms of the impact of AI.
So then, is it hard? You know, you are known and famous for spotting some of the market excesses, the bubbles, the sentiment, booms. The amount of money that is being spent, the trillions of dollars in building out this AI, I think some are wondering, is that too much? Is that going to be worth it? Is everyone too optimistic?
Well, as you mentioned, that was the topic of my December memo. By the way,
You said no bubble then, right?
what I said was, I used Alan Greenspan's phrase of irrational exuberance. That's what a bubble is. I said we certainly have exuberance, but nobody can tell you whether it's irrational because the possible impact of AI is so great that it may turn out to be justified. 10 years from now, we'll look back and you see all that money they spent in 25 and 26, it either was or wasn't warranted. Bubbles, the onrush of money to participate in the new thing causes the acceleration of technological innovation. It always has, it always will. It's doing it today. It usually goes to excess. We'll see this time if it is. People tell me that AI is not in oversupply, is a shortage of AI capability, which suggests that further investment is not unwise.
And not irrational,
Right.
to your point. Yeah, I wanted an update on that because I know you said that in December, but it's May, and since then we've only seen these numbers exponentially go up.
Yes.
In terms of the spending.
Well, really, I mean, AI is the most elusive, unpredictable, powerful thing I've ever seen, or anybody's ever seen. We've never had something as transformative, potentially transformative as AI. And I truly believe that almost nobody can tell you what the world's going to look like in 5 or 10 years. So it's very hard to make investment decisions, both to commit capital and to invest in companies with incredible conviction. You have to try to do your best and make sense of it and do what you think is wise and will thrive under a variety of circumstances. But you can't hit this on the nose.
I wanted to ask
Howard Marks saying it might not be a bubble, folks. I mean, you got the guy who is infamous for calling out bubbles saying we are not in a bubble. Or basically he's saying that the level of demand supply shock around AI means that we don't know if this will be justified in the next 10 years, but he's not going out there and saying it is a legit bubble, which is quite incredible. Word of the day, cognizant. Cognizant is the word of the day, having knowledge or awareness of something. Stay cognizant of your risk. Returns take care of themselves. I believe I'm saying this word right because I've heard this word many times, but having knowledge or awareness of something, that is your word of the day. All right, there we go. That's what we got. I'll be back 3:45 with Jose for AMD, and we'll keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys for AMD in a few hours. All right, buddy. Have a good one.